Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the ORL Future Esports and Next Level Gaming Nations Cup by Mobiuz Gaming. We are here for round 2 of the biggest tournament in F1 2020. My name is Aladar. Joining me in the commentary box today will be Badgerman as well, of course. And we got a few things that we need to talk through. But first, we're just going to mention quickly a big shout out to our title sponsors. Those are, as we just mentioned, Mobiuz Gaming and Next Level Gaming. Without them, it would be very hard, if not impossible, for us to put all this on for you. So spread your love to them. They have been very, very helpful with us. But now we have a special someone sitting in the commentary box with us. So without further ado, I'm going to start my interview with Barry Boromand of the Rest of the World team. Hello, Barry.
Hey, hello to you and everyone who are watching this.
Hi. So, first question. I'm going to try and keep it quick, but first question. So, thinking back to last weekend, obviously, no wins for the Rest of the World team, but you did end up being third in the standings with 62 points. But you're pretty close to the very top with Hungary and Spain ahead of you. How are you feeling about the way that first weekend went?
First, I should say, first event wasn't really luck on our side, I should say, because in Zandvoort I have a crash, and in Silverstone I really haven't done any rain, so and it got rainy. So yeah, that Silverstone was nearly my mistake, and in Spa I got held like 2 seconds in the pit stops. So yeah, we had a little bit bad luck, but still we should be happy to finish P3 with that not ideal event, I should say. And yeah, that's it.
Okay, and then if we now look to the future instead, we look to the events we have in front of us today. The races are Azerbaijan, Hungary, and China. Which one of those are you most looking forward to, and where do you think you'll finish?
To be fair, I should say I just seen full calendar every week, and if you ask me now, choose your worstest track, I'm gonna say Baku and China. but yeah, I think it's not, I'm not really enjoying driving there, but I think pace is there for both races for the win. So yeah, and Hungary absolutely is one of my favorite tracks, but it's not really make sense when if I finish on podium in the first race, not gonna be battle for the win for Hungary, definitely. But yeah, now I can say I'm gonna do my best and enjoy driving and learning.
All right, well, we will let you get on with preparing for the races. Thank you very much for joining us, Barry, and best of luck with the 3 races today.
Thank you so much, guys, and bye-bye.
So now, why don't we take a look at what we had from last week with the results from our 3 races last weekend.
Yes, indeed. Let's start off with round 1 that we had last week. Round 1, race 1, if you will. And it was Danny Berezny starting off the season in very good form indeed after a very close battle with Jan Opmeer, who finished second, and Barry Boromand, who you just interviewed, finished third. And the nations overall in that first race scored like this. It was a very, very close battle indeed there after race 1 between Hungary and Rest of the World. Only 1 point between those two after that first race in Belgium. Netherlands a little bit further down below at 21. That's sort of where they started losing a little bit, but it was, of course, the bad luck of Tymon Schutter that really put them there. He disconnected. He got hacked even. That's how much is on the line here. Very, very unfortunate circumstance indeed. We move on to the second race. That was the reverse grid race. And you may be wondering if you watched it, well, what's going on here? Alvaro Carreton certainly crossed the line in P1. Well, he did on track. However, for an incident earlier in that race, he received a 10-second time penalty that pushed him not just out of the race win, but out of a podium altogether. And it was his fellow countryman driving for Team Europe, however, Ruben Vallejo, who then on penalties won that race. Atte Kaupin in second. Danny Moreno finished in third in what was an absolutely manic race. And the standings from that race looked very different. Spain still topping the sheets there with 32, but only 1 point ahead of Finland. Those two countries really going to war in that race. And then it was Europe at 29 points. Those three made up the majority of the points paying positions in that race. Then we move on to race 3. That was, of course, Great Britain, and what a finish it was, with Jano Opmeer slipping through, gaining 2 places in the final corner to snatch the victory from the jaws of defeat. Danny Berezne finished second, Danny Moreno third, and once again you may be wondering, well, where is Alessio Di Capua? For the incident in the last corner, Alessio Di Capua also received a penalty that pushed him off the podium, and as such, he did not end up there. Once again, we look at the results for all the nations, and we see it is very close in that third race between Spain, the Netherlands, Hungary, and the rest of the world, who all scored at least 24 points there. Poland with a bit of a strong showing there at the end. We'll see if they can continue that form. The overall standings going into tonight's event, we're going to have Hungary leading, but by only 5 points ahead of Spain. 72 to 67. Rest of the world, not very far off either, only 10 points behind the leaders, and even the Netherlands 18 points behind. It's all to play for pretty much all of these teams. Anything is still possible, and those 3 races tonight will certainly shake up the order a little bit.
Yeah, we have plenty of races left to go this season. I got to say, looking at those standings, Italy, that penalty for Di Capua has really harmed them, because they would be sitting quite a lot further up this standings right now, and really in the mix towards the very top, if it hadn't been for that penalty, losing a lot of points as a result of Di Capua's late move on Danny Moreno back at Silverstone. But now, why don't we quickly run you through the format of the races that we are going to see today. You've already heard us mentioning in the interview with Barry Burremand that we will have the races at Azerbaijan, Hungary, and China here today. And those races will be under the same format as we saw last weekend. So to quickly refresh you on that, Azerbaijan, we will have a 25% race, which will be preceded by a short qualifying session. The top 15 finishers in Azerbaijan will be reversed, and they will make up the front 15 starters on the grid for our second 25% race of the day in Hungary. And then the third and final race of today will be at the Shanghai International Circuit in China, where we'll have another short qualifying session, followed by our third 25% race.
And if you are wondering, how are the drivers and the teams scored? How are points being earned? Are we running the typical 25, 18, 15 F1 points format? The answer to that is no, we are not. There's still 25 points for the winner. That doesn't change, but then we go down like this, 21, 18, 16, and you see the rest on screen. The top 15 score points, and Alada already mentioned it, but the top 15 on the grid are going to be reversed. It's not all 20, so P15 in the first race is going to be a very, very interesting battle indeed.
Absolutely, and P15 in a field as strong as we have here in the Nations Cup is no easy feat. You could always finish 20th if you want, and that's why it's only the top 15 rather than the whole field that is reversed for the second race of the day. And it means that finishing 16th is a real double whammy, because not only have you finished just outside of the points, you don't get reversed on the grid at all, so you still start in 16th, which is just going to feel so bad for any driver that meets that particular fate in Azerbaijan. But now let's take a look at the lineups for the teams that we will have going into our first race of the day in Baku, starting with the Hungarians. Now, quick note about the Hungarian team. Danny Berezne was involved in an accident at the Hungaroring earlier today. He is okay, but he will not be racing today for Team Hungary. Hopefully, we will see him back in the rest of the season. But today, it will be István Puki taking his place, also known as Steve in many sim racing circles, and he will be partnered as ever by Benz Zabo Konyi.
Yeah, then we move on to Spain, and it is a very familiar duo for the Spanish squad. It is Alvaro Carreton and Danny Moreno participating in this first race around Azerbaijan.
And then the rest of the world team, we have Josh Idowu and Barry Burremand, who we heard from earlier. He's not looking forward to Azerbaijan, but he'll be feeling a bit better in Hungary.
Yeah, moving on to the Dutch squad, the Netherlands, with Jano Opmeer, of course, being the fixture in that squad, and Matthijs van Erven making his debut after not being able to practice for the first round of the season.
Yeah, and then on to the Finnish team. One of our qualified teams from the qualifiers is Tino Naukarinen and Atte Kauppinen.
Moving on to Team EU, also basically the second Spanish squad, if you will. They will be participating with Jorge Alberola and Samuel Valentin.
Yeah, and then the Italians, for the first race of the day, will have Domenico Lavecce and Dario Iamullo.
Moving on to Poland, we have Tomasz Poradzic and Patrick Kruti.
Then on to the French team. No Nicolas Longuet today. Instead, we have Fabrizio Donoso and Antoine Desaluski.
And last but not least, we have the Turkish squad. And once again, two familiar faces there in Can Akinci and Ulaş Özyildirim.
All right, so that is all the teams that will be lining up here for the first race of the day. We'll be back in just a moment to bring you qualifying in Azerbaijan. Don't go anywhere. Just have a couple of messages from our sponsors. Welcome back then, everybody, to the city streets of Baku in Azerbaijan, where we will be bringing you the first race of today here in the ORL FuturEsports and Next Level Racing Nations Cup by Mobiuz Gaming. And the first car out there on circuit, it's one of the Finns. I think that might be Tino Naukarinen leading them out on the outlaps.
Yeah, it is an interesting circuit here for sure. 6 kilometers long, just over 6 kilometers. The second longest circuit on the full F1 calendar, and by far the longest city circuit on the calendar as well. So certainly a very interesting one. We will see very long laps, and anyone who knows this track, I mean, you have to talk about the massive straight leading all the way from what is really the final proper corner all the way into turn 1. Huge straight there, and we've seen in F1 esports in years past that the drivers in the race really want to be second when we get to the final lap of the race, because you get such a good run with the slipstream and the DRS and even the ERS that you don't want to be in first, as you will just be hemorrhaging time in the race. But first off, we get to qualifying here, as Naukarinen is indeed the first one to start a lap. Let's go on board and see this 6 kilometer long track. We have the first corner, 90 degree left-hander. Second corner, another 90 degree left-hander. And in case you are not knowing where this goes, I can already tell you, turn 3, yeah, it continues the pattern. It's going to be another 90 degree left-hander here on the exit of the second DRS zone. Then we have a little bit of change here, 90 degree right-hander for once, as we now get into the more twisty sections of the circuit. Here, the inside curve, very important. You want to take it, this one you don't. So very tricky for the drivers. You want to get as close as possible to the wall in turn 5, and you want to stay away from the curb at turn 6. Turn 7, taking plenty of curb here. Castle section, infamous. Charles Leclerc ended up here. The infamous words, "I am stupid," still harrowing some of the drivers possibly here. You don't want to end up like him. Now, a lot of high speed coming through or towards the final sector. The massive curb there from Naukarinen, and he's got one real corner to go now in the final sector. It's really just this one corner, and from here it's just a mad dash to the line. Couple of corners to navigate still, but they are all flat out, no issues, no questions asked, And now we wait for the DRS zone. The DRS should open. Can we hear it? We can't hear it, but it should be open by now. As he comes across the line. What is the lap going to be? It is a 1 minute 37.1 from Tino Naukarinen.
Decent opener there from Tino Naukarinen, but it immediately gets bested both by Domenico Lovece and then by Tomasz Poradzic, who is a driver who I know is hotly tipped by many around here in Baku. Barry Buremand going into second there, narrowly behind the Polish driver. This could be very good news for Poland if Poradzic is as strong as advertised around here. If he does have a really good race, or really good qualifying and then into the race itself, that could be some big points that are sorely needed by Team Poland. Idowu joins his teammate in the second and third positions. They're a couple of tenths away from Burman's time. Chanakinci with a strong opener there in fourth. I did notice there was a Mercedes in the wall briefly in the castle section. That is Matthijs van Erven, who is heading back into the pits without any front wing left on his car. So the castle section has claimed its first victim. Luckily for Van Erven, all four wheels are still on the wagon.
Yeah, that is the danger if you get to that sort of spot and you do get it wrong, is that you all of a sudden just cannot compete throughout the rest of qualifying anymore. Thankfully for him, that is not the case. He's on his way back to the pit lane. As you see, Jarno Opme here, currently obviously P19 as he has not set a lap time yet, but he is on his way to do that and change that. Last one of the drivers, as actually Van Erven does cross the line with no front wing. So he did actually go for a lap time there, still to just post something, I guess. And it might be smart as Opme goes third right now, in between the rest of the world drivers of Boromand and Idowu. So third place for Opme. And Van Erven, I think he might be speculating that potentially some of the drivers that haven't set a lap time yet, well, they might follow his example and also end up in the castle section in the wall.
Yeah, I guess best to post a lap time. He can get back around the circuit well enough as long as he makes sure to compensate for the fact that he doesn't have any front wing. And luckily, no other drivers really on flying laps at the moment, so he's not going to get in anyone's way. So no real loss for Van Erven, though it's going to be a rough old lap coming back into the pits for him. Everyone basically back into the pit. Four drivers failed to set a time in that opening exchange. That was Caraton, Moreno, Alberola, and Kauppinen. So the two Spaniards, the European, also Spaniard of Alberola, and then Atte Kauppinen for Team Finland, all yet to get on the board. Meanwhile, Van Erven, of course, only has that very unrepresentative 1:47.5. Quite a big split throughout the field compared to what we usually see. Of course, it is a longer circuit, and it is a circuit that many drivers don't enjoy. So we might see a bit less practice having come through for some of these drivers. And as a result, we are seeing bigger gaps forming in the field in these early stages.
Yeah, I think at the same time, a lot of drivers do not enjoy this track, but I mean, my thinking certainly would be, if I don't enjoy this track, I feel like I'm not good at it. And if I feel like I'm not good at it, I might practice it a little bit more. Ultimately, you want to be strong everywhere, and certainly if a lot of drivers don't like it, well, that's your chance right there. That's your opportunity. Take it with both hands, practice a bit more here, and get a good grip of the track, and then you might be able to snatch some good points here. But at the same time, even if not, as long as you're in the top 15, you're setting yourself up for the second race, so it's still all to play for.
As Yildirim leaves the session, hopefully the Turkish driver can get back into this one soon, currently sitting in 14th on a 37.5. Atte Kauppinen is just about to start his second attempt at a flying lap here in Baku, and he needs to make sure this one sticks. Only 10 minutes left of this qualifying session, and no lap time on the board quite yet. You can see some cars leaving the pit lane on the left-hand side. He is going to encounter some traffic as he goes around this circuit, so Atte Kauppinen is going to have to be very careful to pick his way through the traffic, and oh dear, as Yildirim's car has stopped in the middle of Sector 1 there, even though as Yildirim has left the session, Atte Kauppinen meanwhile makes contact with a wall, didn't pick up any front wing damage, and he looks to still be pushing here, so he's gotten away with that one, has the Finn. But as Yildirim has been disqualified from qualifying without even being in the session, that is such bad luck for the Turk.
Yeah, he's going to have to start from dead last, and he has a mountain to climb in front of him. Very, very unlucky. Let's hope he can rejoin and maybe regain some of the positions. We know how crazy Azerbaijan is. The words, "well done, Baku," still ring true. in many a racer's head. Anything can happen around this track. Safety cars are very likely and can jumble up the order massively. And there goes the front wing end plate for Atakaupinen. Is he going to still try to finish this lap? We saw the AlphaTauri end plate, and I think he may have invalidated there actually in the final proper corner.
Looks to still be going here in the AlphaTauri. No red track map, so he is still all right at the moment. Does have that front wing damage. Will he commit to finishing this lap? He looks like he's heading back straight into the pit lane. And yeah, Atakaupinen, that was his third contact with the wall over the course of that lap. Didn't manage to get a lap in at the first time of asking. Has struggled there on the second time of asking. And it's starting to get a little bit nervy for the Finnish driver. His teammate now, Karinen, currently sitting sort of midfield up there in 8th for now. That's a decent first attempt from Tino Naukarinen. And Alvaro Caraton is now coming out of the final couple of corners here. He's yet to set a lap time as well. Was had a win taken away from him last weekend at Zandvoort. So he'll be very, very keen to try and regain a spot on the podium at least. And he needs to start well in qualifying here in Baku to get on the right track. Will this be good? No, it will not. A 37.570, only good enough for 14th there for Alvaro Caraton. His teammate Moreno invalidated. So the Spaniards still really, really struggling.
Yeah, seems so. Maybe not the best track. It's very, very uncharacteristic of them to struggle that much. The Caraton is a second down almost on Poradzic's time. Try saying that 3 times. Poradzic is a tricky name, but here he comes. He is tipped by many. You mentioned it earlier, to do very well at the very least. And one of those that tipped him, actually, as he does go back into the pit lane here, so he aborts this run. One of those that tipped him is actually Tino Naukarinen in P8 right now. There was a tweet I saw earlier that basically said if Poradzic does not win this, it will be I have to paraphrase here, I don't know the exact wording, but I think he said something to the extent it will be a major bottle. So Poradzic, certainly the favorite among the drivers here as well, it seems, as now Karinen moves himself up to P6 with less than 4/10 behind Poradzic, who still has the provisional pole position.
Yeah, you wonder if it was maybe mind games a little bit coming through from Tino Naukarinen as well, under the guise of friendly banter. We'll have to see whether it's going to work. At the moment, Poradzic is still looking very strong out there. Still at the front, despite not going again for a second lap time, as Yildirim has joined the session back, and he will unfortunately be discovering the fact that he has in fact been disqualified, even though he himself has not done anything wrong. Let's see what Jarno Otmir is doing. He's exiting the final corner now. After the first couple of sectors, he was up about 1/10.5. That's on track to get him right in the mix with Poradzic and Burumand right now. Burumand's on a lap as well, just behind him. Let's see Otmir coming across the line, and he does go fastest, almost by 1/10 of a second. Burumand's backed out of his lap. He's going back into the pit lane. Josh Idowu is the next one to be coming up to the line. Burumand's teammate in the second of the rest of the world cars. The orange McLaren crosses the line, and he improves, but not by enough to claim any places. Still sitting there in 4th for the Welshman. But nevertheless, it's still looking very good for the rest of the world team, with 3rd and 4th locked in at the moment.
Yeah, certainly better than for any other team. If you look across both drivers here, we see Patrick Kruti down in P10 for the Polish team, and Matthijs van Erven, after his first issue and his first incident, completely tearing off the front wing of his car. He's still in the pit lane, and he is currently down in P16 with what really cannot be described as a representative lap for the F1 Esports Series Challengers driver.
Absolutely. And speaking of F1 Esports Series Challengers drivers, Atakaupinen is back at it again with another lap. This one's looked a little bit cleaner than the last attempt. He got a bit of a wiggle on in the castle section there, did the Finn. And he's run wide through turn 12. That can be an invalidation, but he's avoided invalidating through there. Just got off the throttle enough to allow the game to allow him to continue. Now into the heavy braking zone here. He'll take the esports line. You got to cut there. That's how you have to do it if you want any pace through that corner whatsoever. And this time he avoided the wall on the right-hand side. So no front wing damage on this attempt. A bit of a wiggle out of the final proper corner as well. Now just 19 and 20 here. Nothing really to think about through these ones. Flat out and straight to the line for Atakaupinen. He'll have to hurry up and wait with his foot pressed onto the throttle. He'll be willing that line to come closer and closer. It's not getting any closer any faster, though. Let's see what it's going to be for Atte Kauppinen as he crosses the line. That's a good lap time. Up into 5th he goes, unseating Chanakinchi there, and moving ahead of his own teammate now, Karinen. Very good stuff from Team Finland so far.
Yeah, certainly very, very strong showing here right now. But with 4 minutes left in the session, there's still a lot of things that can happen. Alberola for Team Europe just went across the line and moved up to P14. That is his first sort of representative lap time on the board. And we have 17 drivers who have posted some decent lap or another, with Van Erven and Moreno being the only 2 drivers. And they will only have one chance to get a decent lap time on the board here. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very tricky. I mean, you can overtake here, but you can really only overtake, as we see Kauppinen letting by one of the Ferraris. That would be Alberola, that's for sure, who's also on his in-lap. So a bit surprising there from Kauppinen that he does that, because as far as I'm aware, Alberola is not on a flyer right now. And one of the first drivers actually out of the pit lane for the final run here is Tomasz Perajic. He does not wait. He does not want to leave it in anyone else's hands. He does not want to be the last one. He wants to have the clear traffic. That seems to be a clear choice here. And he is the first one out. So he will be the first one to dictate the time that we might have to see for pole position from anyone else.
Indeed, Domenico Lovecce has found his way up into P5. He's a bit off kilter, just like Kauppinen, not really running at the same time as most other cars. And the Italian has been able to benefit from it so far. There's a big gap between himself and Idowu that I'm expecting several drivers to try and insert themselves into. And speaking of Kauppinen, you mentioned him letting other drivers through. I think he might be trying to give a slipstream to now Karinen at some point here, because he's going so slow on his in-lap that he's not going to get another chance to start another flying lap, which is why Alberola was hot-footing it back into the pit lane. He wants to get out there for one more lap. I think he might just have run out of time, but Atte Kauppinen has given up on that. He's staying out on circuit, so I think either he's completely out of fuel here and in low fuel mode, or he's going to be trying to give a slipstream to Tino now Karinen. We'll have to wait and see on that one. Patrick Kruti, though, for Team Poland, he is the first one to start this last set of flying laps. So let's see what the Red Bull driver can do for the Polish team as Patrick Kruti heads towards the end of Sector 1 into Turn 3 here. You want to just avoid the curb ever so slightly on the inside, and he does a good job of that. Now Turn 4, always difficult one to get the power down on the exit, but no problems for Patrick. As we head now into Turn 6 and 7. Look how close he was to the left-hand side there. That's exactly what you want. It opens up the line so much. And now into the beginning of the castle section, as he looked to have a pretty decent Sector 1 time there.
Yeah, it looked very quick as well. Oh, and there! Oh my, we just commentators cursed him, I think. He is now stuck in the castle section, and that's going to be dangerous for everyone else on the lap. He has to get going quickly, and he does. But that is the front wing completely torn off the front of the nose there, and that is his qualifying over. I think the next one is going to be Tomasz Perajic, who is now getting there, and he takes a cleaner. He is still on a good lap here, now out of the castle section, and a lot of speed is needed here for the double left-hander. I think the first one we can call Ericsson Corner, named after, of course, the famous incident where Roman Grosjean was allegedly hit by Marcus Ericsson. And now through Turn 17 here, final proper corner, as we like to call it, and now just on the throttle. Get those 2 corners coming up here right, 19 and 20. You don't want to get them any wrong, or you will end up in the wall. In qualifying, that is a lot easier than in the race. And now a mad dash to the line. He holds that throttle. You try to, as you mentioned earlier, you really try to will yourself to the line. And Perajic beats Jarno Opmeer's time by half a tenth for provisional pole position.
Fabrizio Donoso just moved up into 3rd as well. That's a good lap time from Perajic, considering he lost 2/10 on his best lap time in the middle sector alone. So if he'd nailed that middle sector, he would be even more solid at the top right now. Dezaluski's just gone up to 5th, so the French have come on strong towards the end of this qualifying session. Jarno Opmeer has backed out of his lap, I think. Is he still pushing? I think he's still pushing. It was hard to tell. I thought I saw him lifting off the throttle for a moment there. He's not opening the DRS. Jarno
Yeah.
Otmir is done. He cannot take pole anymore. Barria Buraman will not be able to start any higher than P4. Now, let's see who's coming across the line next. I think that's one of the Hungarians. Zabo Konyi coming up towards the line. He moves up in a 7th. That's a stronger lap then from the Hungarian. Then next coming up, that's a Finn. That's going to be now Karinen. That's only good enough for P9. Istvan Puki is back into the pit, so 17 is the best he can hope for. Josh Yadowu across the line to take the top spot with pole position now as Van Erven goes 8th. And now it's Yemulo across the line. He cannot improve by enough. He stays 14th. And with that, qualifying has come to its conclusion.
And Josh Yadowu takes pole position, Tomasz Paradzic 2nd, and Jarno Opmeer 3rd. But I gotta say, strong showing for rest of the world, strong showing for France. No one in the top 3, but 2 drivers in the top 6. They were certainly looking to improve on their form after last week. And yeah, then we have the Dutch as well, pretty strong here. Opmeer in 3rd, I think Van Erven ended up 8th, if I saw that correctly. We're gonna have to wait and see what this ends up being. Yes, indeed, P8. So the Netherlands also with a strong showing. I think we have about 3 teams here that could make for something very interesting. The Finns very close together, but it's P10 and P11. One starting inside the top 10 on the softs. The other starting outside the top 10 and can choose his tires. That would be Atte Kauppinen. He can choose what he starts on, and that is the perfect scenario to go on the alternate strategy and just split things up a little bit. With that, we will be right back after a couple of words from our sponsors.
And welcome back then, everybody, to the formation lap here at the Baku City Circuit in Azerbaijan. And I tell you what, it's looking mighty overcast here in Baku. There were a couple of times last weekend where we thought, wow, the sky is looking a little bit dark. Maybe we'll get some rain. We did see some rain, but only in the qualifying session at Silverstone. And who knows whether these overcast clouds will bring us anything here today. I should quickly mention this is the ORL and FuturEsports and Next Level Racing Nations Cup by Mobiuz Gaming. This is round 2 of the tournament, round 2 of 6, and race 1 of today's event. My name is Aldar, and joining me in the commentary box for the race itself will still, of course, be Badgerman. And we are very much looking forward to this one. It's Josh Yadowu, who's taken pole position honours for the rest of the world team, driving in that bright orange McLaren, with Tomasz Paradzic in 2nd. And Paradzic was hailed as the driver to beat, but I did notice Yadowu was doing a lot of practice throughout the week, some of it at Baku. So evidently that practice has paid off in bucket loads. Congratulations to him on the pole position. And now let's see what tyres everyone is running on this formation lap.
Yeah, indeed. The top 10 obviously have to start on the soft tires they qualified on. Slightly older soft tires. It says 0 laps. They're not exactly 0 lap old. They have obviously done their 1 qualifying stint. But everyone outside the top 10 on the alternate strategy, starting off on the mediums here without exception. And this should get very interesting. The alternate strategy, of course, hailed a lot by the drivers as the OP strategy, the overpowered strategy. And we'll see if that holds true once again as the drivers are about to line up on the grid for the start of the first race of 3 tonight.
AI is taking back control of the cars now. There's a bit of a gap in the middle of the field there. Looks like Dario Yamulo has held up several of the drivers on this formation lap for whatever reason. Don't know if that's going to annoy the front runners a little bit because they'll have a long time waiting at the front end of the grid. It might hurt temperatures. It might hurt them in a more mental way as well. There's a lot of time to be thinking, sitting there and thinking about your starts off the line. And that might be getting in their heads just a little bit. Easy to overthink in scenarios such as this. But now the final cars are lining up with Valentin and Özildirim on the back of the grid. It is Idowu and Poradzic at the very front, with Otmir and Donoso just behind as well. Huge spades of talent on the front couple of rows of this grid. And now the lights are beginning to come on for the first race of Event 2 of the Nations Cup. And we get underway here in Baku, and that looks to have been a good start for Idowu. Poradzic is going to challenge him up the inside, but Idowu sweeps around the outside. No problem for him, but there are problems for Poradzic behind, because there comes Jarno Otmir. That's a fearsome foe to have to battle through turn 2, but there's no way around the outside of that corner, and Poradzic holds on for the time being. It's Idowu from Poradzic, then Otmir, then Donoso, who's really harassing the rear end of that Mercedes as well. Then Boroman, Dizaluski, and Van Erven following behind. Van Erven's under pressure here from Ben Sabokoni, who's trying to go around the outside of turn 3. He's not been able to make that move stick and just has to settle back down behind the Dutchman.
Yeah, apologies meanwhile for the issues with the timing tower. That is not in our control. It will sort itself out in just a couple of moments, and there it is actually. So now we are back. Everything's correct, and the big winner is already Ulaş Özildirim, who gained 3 places on the start here off the line and in the first couple of corners. So he's placed his car in a good spot there as they all make their way through the castle section for the first of 13 times.
Yeah, bad news for Team Europe, who are currently running 19th and 20th. Jorge Alderol has had a poor start. And Özildirim needed a good start as well, because let's not forget, he got disqualified in the qualifying session. So we don't really know what his pace is like around here, where he ought to have stacked up relative to the rest of the field. But he is looking to make amends for that very unfortunate issue that he faced in qualifying. At the front, though, Josh Idowu is starting to build ever so slight a margin to Tomasz Poradzic. That's going to come straight back down due to the slipstream on the long main straight here. But nevertheless, promising start to the race for the rest of the world driver. Poradzic, then Otmir, then Donoso, who is himself falling a little bit further away from the Dutchman up ahead, Barria Boromand. Wasn't looking forward to the race here in Baku, but it's not been so bad for him thus far, currently running around in P5. Meanwhile, Chanakinci and Patrick Kruti, I think, were battling further down, but Akinci still holding on to 12th for the time being.
Yeah, and it is not lap 3, it is still lap 2. DRS is not enabled yet. Once again, a couple of issues there from the game side of things. We apologize for that. Not much we can do, unfortunately. But here we are now, lap 2, and everything is sorting itself out once more as the drivers are coming through the end of the first sector, now in the middle sector. And Idowu, apologies for that, we learned in the meantime. Idowu is still leading ahead of Poradzic. Otmir third, not much movement there so far, but things can always change, and I think they will change at some point throughout this race.
Absolutely. Medium tyre runners for now are holding on to the soft tyre runners. The DRS train continues all the way down the order for the time being. So that is good news for all those running that Contra strategy who started outside of the top 10. And of them, I think the best placed is Atta Kalpanen. Currently, he started 11th. He's stayed 11th. Chanakinci close behind him as well. Then there's Patrick Kruti, who's falling just a little bit away from those two for the time being, but is still in DRS range for the time being. No DRS yet, of course, but he needs to make sure he stays within a second for the time when DRS will indeed become available. And it's been a rough start for Istvan Pukki as well. He's not made as much progress as he would have liked. Currently sitting down there in 18th. He was a last-minute replacement for Danny Berezhny, of course. So he's got very big shoes to fill. Hopefully for him, he can continue to push on as the race continues.
Yeah, surprisingly, no one in the pit lane just yet. I would have thought that maybe someone is pulling an early stop here and trying to get some sort of undercut, but at the same time, it is too early to pull an undercut, because if you do jump onto the medium tire as a soft runner right now, you are going to be slower than those medium runners, because the difference between the tires is just too much right now, that even those worn softs are probably still slightly better than fresh mediums. So maybe by the end of lap 3 or 4, we're gonna see some drivers trying to go for the undercut.
I'm thinking about the very front of the field right now. I think Paradzic is in relative control of this race. It's Josh Idowu leading and Paradzic is second, but you mentioned in qualifying, second is sometimes where you want to be because you can get a big slipstream. However, as soon as I say that, Paradzic makes a mistake through turn 12 there, and that's going to leave Jarno Opmeer smelling a little bit of blood in the water there as the pole has recovered from that mistake and is closing back up on Josh Idowu again. But nevertheless, he's had to use a bit of his ERS percentage there after making that mistake just to ensure that he wasn't going to be vulnerable to the Mercedes behind.
Yeah, meanwhile, here's Idowu. Is any of the top 10 drivers going to come into the pit lane here at the end of this lap? We'll see. Some of them are moving over a little bit to the left side. Here's is Idowu gonna... Yes, and not just him. Ooh. I thought he was gonna bluff, but no, he comes in and Paradzic follows him in, as is Dezaluski, Sabukonyi, Naukarin, and Lovece. We have a busy pit lane right now.
Yeah, very, very busy indeed. I think there's a hole in the pit lane there.
Yeah.
Paradzic had to wait for Lovece to go through. Idowu's had to wait for several drivers to go through. Dezaluski seems to have benefited from this. He finds himself ahead of the McLaren of Josh Idowu, who loses out both to Paradzic and to Dezaluski. Disastrous pit stop for the Welshman, driving for the rest of the world team after what was such a promising start to the race.
Yeah, and it is Tomasz Paradzic who is now the net leader of the race. How unfortunate this is for the rest of the world team. I mean, it's something that is out of the driver's control, but sometimes you just don't have that space to re-enter the pit lane itself from your pit box. And that was unfortunately the case here for Idowu. He could have been served better by staying out another lap, but he was the leader. He didn't know how many people were going to pit behind him, and so it really was out of his control, and he's going to have to fight back to try and get those positions back, as Paradzic seemed very, very cautious there on entry to the castle section. We see the drivers usually take that a little bit more risky, but you don't want to throw a lead away. You don't want to just throw away 25 big points, especially for this Polish team that struggled a little bit in the first event. Meanwhile, we look further ahead. Jarno Opmeer, he's been waiting a lap longer. He's going to come in now to make his pit stop. Donoso is going to continue. Boromant coming in as well. So they're going a lap longer, trying to potentially go for an overcut here. Not that I think that's going to be helpful, but they won't be held up in the pit lane. That much is for sure. And so Opmeer and Boromant now coming back out of the pit lane. Where is Paradzic? There, look at this. This might actually work.
It might work. Paradzic is coming around turn 1 right now, and you can see up ahead, that is Jarno Opmeer leaving the pits in what is now effectively the lead of this race. Boromant, meanwhile, has managed the overcut on Dezaluski and on Idowu. His own teammate Dezaluski tried to go side by side with him through turn 2 there, but Boromant looks to have shut that particular door, holding on to the position for now, what is effectively third place in this race. And not only has Jarno Opmeer pulled off the overcut, he has broken the DRS to Tomasz Paradzic as well. So this is a huge lap from Jarno Opmeer there, a fantastic pit stop and an in-lap. And now he can push on this outlap. He's using a lot of his battery charge just to try and build that gap to Tomasz Paradzic, just behind him in 11th. Matthijs van Erven and Donoso are now at the very front of the race, but they are still yet to pit. Patrick Kruti picks up a 3-second time penalty. I noticed half a lap ago he was having some connection difficulties, got passed by both of the Spanish drivers as a result, and he is very low on his ERS percentage, so he is having a rough start to this race. And that's unfortunate because Team Poland need all the points they can get.
I tell you what, Aladar, this to me has shades of Hungary 2019. Heck, it has shades of Spain today. A Mercedes in the pit lane on strategy, stumping a Red Bull. I mean, if that's not an exact replication of what we saw earlier today and what we saw in Hungary 2019, then I don't know what is. Jarno Opmeer with a fantastic strategy call right there. And 1.7 seconds. And look at Josh Idowu. He's fallen all the way down to a net P5 right now.
Oh. Donoso just got the longest hold in the pit lane I've ever seen, and I'm not even sure why. Only one car went past him, and he was just stuck in the pit lane for ages. It's almost like he wasn't engaging the gear or something. Maybe he had some issue with his wheel rig or some kind of bug, but Donoso has lost out in a major way. He was running just behind Otmir. He was going to overtake Otmir when Otmir came into the pits, and now look at him. Fabrizio Donoso is getting passed by Zabo Konyi into turn 3, and this has been a disaster for the Chilean-French driver driving here for Team France.
Yeah, I mean, very, very surprising to see that what happened, and it looks like he didn't engage the game. Maybe there was some kind of wheel issue. That certainly is a possibility, but whatever it is, very, very unlucky for him indeed, as the gap between Otmir and Parajic has stayed the same at pretty much 1.7 seconds. It's going up and down a little bit here and there, but it's been staying pretty much the same at 1.6, 1.7, 1.8 in that frame, as we are waiting, I think, for the top 6 to still make their pit stops, and they're, of course, all running on the medium tire that they started on. Will any of them make it into the pit lane now? I think they're going to wait another lap or two, or am I wrong? I think I'm wrong here, and indeed I am. Kaupinen and Karaton are going to come into the pit lane, so they immediately call me out by pitting, and no, it makes sense. You want to have the soft tires as long as possible. You want to give yourself the maximum opportunity to make up some positions. There is Kaupinen and Karaton now down behind Sabakonyi and Donoso in 15th and 16th on track. That might all change once the top 4 are coming into the pit lane, but right now they're gonna have to make some moves, and they should be able to make some moves on those fresh soft tires.
Yeah, I don't know if you mentioned it already, but take a look at Van Erven, currently running in what will effectively be 3rd. This could be a double podium for the Dutch team, and that is a huge shot in the arm for them after a slightly disappointing week 1. Jarno Otmir is effectively leading the way with Van Erven in effective 3rd position, and he's got fresher tyres than Tomasz Paradzic up ahead as well. So this could be great news for Van Erven. It could even be a Dutch 1-2. And Van Erven, let's not forget, started on P8 on the grid, so he has had a fantastic race so far. He is low on his ERS percentage right now. He must have used a lot of it on his in-laps to make sure that he could get the overcut on Boroman, Desaluski, Idowu, and the likes of Levece as well. But nevertheless, very, very strong performance from the boys in the Mercedes. Danny Moreno leads the way for now with Patrick Cruti in 2nd, Yemulo 3rd, and Puki 4th, but those drivers are yet to pit in this race. Then you have Jarno Otmir, who has pitted, followed by Tomasz Paradzic, Van Erven, Boroman, Desaluski, Idowu, and Levece, who will be the effective top 8 once everyone comes into the pits. Moreno's made a collision into the pit lane. I think Cruti and Moreno both came into the pits and collided somehow. A 5-second penalty for Moreno for that one. I don't know if he'll have to serve that in the pit lane or not. I suspect he won't. No, indeed, he's not serving it there. And that is bad, bad news for Team Spain. And this race was already not really going their way.
Yeah, I think the stewards are going to have a look at that one. Generally, any kind of collision into the pit lane might result into an unwarranted 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane if you're getting pushed over the line faster than you're intending to be. And now there was a virtual safety car?
Yeah, the virtual safety car for the incident there. We're back under green right now, though. But Moreno's picked up another penalty in the form of a drive-through for speeding behind that virtual safety car. So he is pretty much done in this race. After 2 podiums last time out, Danny Moreno's first race of Event 2 has not gone well at all. And he won't even find himself a proper slot on the reverse grid either. So he's going to be starting from the very back in Hungary, and that is a daunting task, to say the least.
Yeah, certainly. It is a track that is notorious for not being able to overtake on. And so starting in P18 or even further down, I mean, he has a drive-through to contend as well. So that would be probably P20 at that point, considering the pit lane here and the gaps. Is now Karina picks up a penalty. Let's look further up ahead again as Van Erven is looking to put some pressure on Paradzic and make it a potential 1-2 for the Dutch here at Azerbaijan. Is he going to be able to do that? He's not close enough yet. Paradzic has actually gained 0.4 of a second in the last lap or two on Otmir, so there might be a chance that we see a battle for the win right down to the wire between Opmer and Paradzic.
Van Erven deep into turn 1 there. He's chasing time. He's not as fast as these guys in raw race pace, and he's struggling, hanging on by his fingertips right now. You can see in the fact that his overtake percentage is consistently below 10% all the way around the lap here for Van Erven. And he is using everything he has to try and hold on in P3. That is going to be very tough for him when it comes to the final couple of laps and everyone else starts using their own battery charges. For 11th position, Dario Yemulo has just been able to get past Alvaro Caraton. Both of those guys on soft tyres running the contra strategy. In the points for the moment, but they'd like to gain a few more positions. Atte Kauppinen is right up behind Donoso, who himself is in that finish sandwich between Naukarinen and Kauppinen. And I wonder if Naukarinen's going to try and help Kauppinen through on the Frenchman behind.
I mean, while we're still looking at that battle here between Paradzic and Van Erven, what is going to happen? We have 4.5 laps left to go, and apparently we're getting some notification from Nadi Perez, one of the members of Team Spain, that the incident between Patrick Cruty and Danny Moreno was Cruty running into the back of Moreno and pushing him into the pit entry. So that 5-second penalty for Danny Moreno might get removed. The drive-through penalty for speeding under virtual safety car most likely will not. In fact, it definitely won't, because he has to serve that within 3 laps. But the 5-second penalty might get removed after the race, and there might potentially be a penalty coming Patrick Cruty's way for an unsafe pit entry there, running into the back of Danny Moreno.
The soft tyre runners are flying right now. Istvan Pukki and Zabo Konyi have both been able to get past Çanakkale here. Zabo Konyi's race has gone disastrously so far. And as Yildirim has been losing out positions as well. Not sure what's happened to the Turkish driver. Meanwhile, Kauppinen has been able to dispatch Donoso. And Van Erven has fallen well away from Tomasz Paradzic. So he's ripe for the picking for the likes of Badia Burman and Antoine Desaluski, who are just behind him. He's still really struggling to maintain any sort of semblance of battery charge. And as a result, he is losing time to the rest of the runners around him.
Yeah, Paradzic is about to be in that 1-second window. He might get some DRS to pull himself ever so close to Opmer. This could be a manic finish there between those two for the race win. Right now, he's back out of the 1 second, but this can go either way. Where are they on track right now? They're heading towards turn 17. A bit of a slide there from Paradzic, and that cost him 0.2 of a second. This is how important it is to keep the car stable and not get any of those moments. Paradzic there losing 1/4 of a second almost to Opmer.
Burman's coming for Van Erven. I don't think there's anything the Dutchman can do to defend against this one. You can see the McLaren reeling it in as he opens the DRS now. He's used a lot of his own battery charge, but he doesn't need it anymore because he has that front wing or that rear wing adjustment. And he just breezes past the Dutchman into turn 1. So Burman reclaims a spot on the podium for now. Now it's up to him to see if he can chase down Paradzic and Opmer, but he's going to struggle without any of that battery remaining to him. Further down the order, Cruty, Zabo Konyi, Akinci, they're battling. The battling is frenetic towards reverse grid pole P15 here. As Zabo Konyi leaves Akinci space, but Çanakkale is starting to struggle on his soft tyres, getting a little bit worn in that Haas. And the Turks are both just outside of the points right now. They're going to be desperate to try and claim a position there. Good news for them is that Patrick Cruty does have a time penalty to contend with, so they might be able to get at least Çanakkale into those point-scoring positions.
Yeah, I think what they're hoping right now is that Patrick Cruty somehow drives away, which he seems like he has the pace to do, and then they might find Zabo Konyi vulnerable, and that could be 2 Turkish drivers moving up 1 position on Zabo Konyi, and then getting 1 on penalty by Cruty, and they would end up being 14th and 15th, and we would have an all-Turkish front row for the Hungarian race, for the Hungarian Grand Prix, and what an opportunity that would be.
Getting very tasty between Donoso and Yemulo, and as I say that, Donoso cuts turn 15 a bit too sharply, and as a result finds himself with a 3-second time penalty. Now Dario Yemulo has no need to get past him. Now Karinen up ahead also has that time penalty. Same for Domenico Lovece, who's currently running in P7. Van Erven, meanwhile, he's about to retake his third position on Barry Borreman, who's not been able to drive clear of the Dutchman here. And Van Erven up the inside into turn one. They're side by side on the way through. And Borreman is still there. He's still forcing Van Erven to consider him in this battle. But Van Erven will be able to break late enough into turn two. Further behind, there's another battle going on involving a McLaren. It's Dezaluski and Idowu who are fighting. But they hold on. As meanwhile, Chanakinchi's lost it. He's round on the exit of turn one. Not sure what happened to the Turk. But that's his chance of points completely out the window.
Yeah, and that is a bit unfortunate. I was just talking about how they could make it past Sabakonya and get a front row, and all of a sudden, one lap later, here we are in a very, very different situation with the Turkish team. But I think it is still possible. How much of a penalty does Kruti have? It is 8 seconds. He will stay ahead of Akinci, but I'm pretty sure the gap is right now 4.2, 4.3 between Kruti and Yildirim. I'm pretty sure Kruti is going to lose that position. Within 2 laps, he's not going to drive out 4 seconds on Ulaş Yildirim. So I think Kruti might find himself ultimately in P16 and just outside of the reverse grid pole position. And well, then on reverse grid P16 as well.
Yeah, the contra strategists in this race haven't been having the best time of it. Only one of them has been able to crack into the top 10, at least on circuit, and that is Atte Kauppinen, who's running well for Team Finland. He looked good in qualifying for parts of it, did qualify in 11th in the end, but nevertheless has had a very strong race here. Now let's look at Borreman as he's taking third position back once more. It's a yo-yo between the two of these guys, but Borreman is leading between the two of them as we enter the final lap of the race. And that might mean that Van Erven has no more chances to battle back against the Iranian Borreman, who is now into that podium slot. Otmir still leading the way from Paradzic, who's now 1.7 seconds behind. Van Erven is going for another move on Borreman. He has his own DRS, but he's not close enough into turn 3. And Borreman holds on to it there. Idowu still unable to make any progress into this DRS train. Ahead of him, Antoine Dezaluski holding him at arm's length for the time being for Team France. They need as many points as they can get to the boys in the Renaults, because Team France had a very poor opening week, only scoring 17 points at Event 1, and they're set to score about that many points in this race alone here in Event 2, with Donoso running around in 10th.
Yeah, meanwhile, Van Erven has one more chance. It is the long run from turn 17 all the way to the line. That is his only opportunity. It is a long DRS zone. It is a long straight, but he needs to be close enough. Right now he is 0.4 of a second. That would suffice, but he also needs some battery charge. We go on board. We see he's running at about 15%. That might not be enough. Does Borreman have any more? He has a little bit more, but is that going to be enough to battle the DRS? 0.4 of a second, some slipstream as well. We're going to see Jarno Opmeer towards the line. He will take victory here at Azerbaijan. It will be Tomasz Paradzic in second, just to quickly catch that. But here's Van Erven. Is it going to be close? It is super close, but with less than 1/10 of a second, Barry Borreman saves himself a podium spot here ahead of Matthijs Van Erven.
Watch Karaton, he's trying to give 14th to Zabo Konyi, but in fact they both inherit from Patrick Kruti, so the best laid plans of Alvaro Karaton do not come to pass. But Karaton, who was running in about 10th or 11th on the final lap, suddenly slowed down and aimed for P15. He's trying to game the system and going for reverse grid pole there, Alvaro Karaton. He couldn't quite manage it in the end, as he didn't let Zabo Konyi pass in time, and he didn't account for the penalty of Patrick Kruti. But nevertheless, he will be starting third on the grid in Hungary, so he won't be feeling too unhappy with that one. Zabo Konyi at his home race will be starting on the front row, with Yildirim taking reverse grid pole in the end.
Yeah, so at least one Turkish driver there, and Yildirim, we talked about him, starting P20. P15, I think, was his target, most likely, because you have to get that. You have to get into the top 15 somehow, even if you're starting last. And for Yildirim to have been able to do that, I think he's going to be very, very happy with himself as he now starts on pole position for Hungary. Meanwhile, Jarno Opmeer, 25 points for Team Netherlands, and Matthijs Van Erven as well with another 16. That is a massive points haul for the Dutch, and they get 41 points from this one race alone. They've had, if I remember correctly, around 54 after the first 3 races, and now they just get 41 in 1. So they are right back into the mix, but they will also start from P12 and P15 respectively. Meanwhile, it is Tomasz Poradzic who got 2nd place there. He wasn't close enough to challenge Otmay in the end. Barry Boroman gets 3rd and also on the podium. Rest of the world as well, with Josh Idowu in P6 doing a fantastic job here. The French, they have Antoine Zalewski in P5 and Fabrizio Donoso in P12, who will get a 2nd row start for Budapest. The Finns as well with a decent result here, P7 and P10, getting themselves some good points, and we just quickly show everything down the order as it absolutely went to shambles for both Team Europe, no points whatsoever, and Team Spain with only 3 points for them. Turkey as well, they do have pole position, but Janik Inci in P18, not very helpful. And yeah, we will be right back for round number 2, race number 2 at Budapest. Do not go anywhere. We will be right back after a couple words from our partners.
It's time now. Your blood is burning. Your stamina is rising. Greet all the challenges in your way.
Üdvözöljük. Welcome to Hungary, and my apologies if that pronunciation was all over the place. We are back, the ORL FuturEsports and Next Level Racing Nations Cup by Mobiuz Gaming. We are in the second event of 6 in the tournament, and we're in the second race of this event too, the second race of the day, and that will of course be the Hungarian Grand Prix at the Hungaroring. My name is Aladar. I'll be your lead commentator, and analysing the race with me will be Badgerman.
Yeah, and we are looking forward to this track. I gotta say, personally, I know a lot of people do not like it because it's so difficult to race on it. It's so hard to overtake. But I think it is, for one, a very, very fun track to drive just on your own. It has a little bit of a flow to it. So I really enjoy it in that way. And you can still overtake. You're just, you know, very likely to do it on the main straight. But yeah, there is still at least one chance to do it. And don't forget, you have 2 DRS zones back to back with 1 detection point. Let's actually quickly look at the track layout there. In the bottom left, the Hungaroring circuit, 4.381 kilometers long, and yeah, the main straight at the very bottom there, and then the run towards turn 3. Those 2 are going to be the DRS zones. It's a very short DRS zone, but if you can't complete an overtake in the main straight and in turn 1, then you still have that option available to you to get a little bit of a better run to turn 3. The long left-hander, the downhill falling away off camber left-hander, and then I mean, it is. I really like this track. I can't say anything against it. Again, I understand it is Monaco with some grass, Monaco without the barriers. You know, we've heard all of that, but to drive, I think it is a fantastic track with a really nice flow.
Yeah, absolutely, especially when you get a really good setup and you get the car really hooked in. You get used to it, you understand what's going on, you're all hooked up, and you can just drive it and away you go. And it is great fun. And it's always good to get, like, you know, an intricate S section like you have at the rear end of the Hungary circuit. You know, it's always fun when you get one of those right. When you get one of those wrong, it's an absolute disaster and you feel like the worst driver in the world. But when you get one right, it feels fantastic. And I'm sure not many of the drivers here today will be feeling like the worst drivers in the world. In fact, they are some of the best that we have to offer here on F1 2020, including, of course, F1 Esports reigning champion, Jarno Opmeer, chief among them. He was our race winner in that first race, a race that was sort of gifted to him a little bit with the troubles that Josh Idowu had in the pit stop. But nevertheless, Jarno did a fantastic run himself, particularly on that first stint, to get the overcut on Tomasz Paradzic, who was a driver that many thought was going to be super strong in Baku, but Jarno Opmeer managed to one-up him.
Yeah, and it's not often that we do see a driver successfully perform an overcut on this game. It is a very rare occurrence. So for Jarno Opmeer, I think that in-lap that he showed there before his pit stop, I think that was a magical lap right there. There's no other way that you can end up in front of a driver who is as close to the track that we were just on, as close to the Baku City circuit as Tomasz Paradzic is. It is one of his favorite tracks. It is one of the tracks where he is the best at. And so to beat him out like that on an overcut, Jarno Opmeer with a really, truly magical drive right there. And well-deserved 25 points for Team Netherlands as they try to move up the order a little bit after a suboptimal first event, I would say. They're coming back now, and they are certainly a force to be reckoned with.
Of course. And now we're just setting up the lobby here with the reverse grid and a few substitutions for the teams as well. So let's run through the order of the teams and who is driving for which team. Starting then with Team Hungary, we have, as in Azerbaijan, we have Istvan Puki and Bence Zabokonyi.
Moving on to Spain, we have no changes there either. It is Alvaro Caraton and Danny Moreno.
Yeah, and then on to the rest of the world team, Josh Idowu, who managed pole position and then P6 in the last race, and Badia Boramand, who managed P3 at a race he was not looking forward to.
Moving on to the Netherlands with the race 1 race winner of tonight, Jano Opmeer, and P4 finisher Matthijs van Erven.
And on to the Finns, who had a couple of solid point-scoring finishes in Azerbaijan. That was Tino Naukarinen and Atte Kauppinen, and they will be both joining us again for the Hungarian race.
Then to Team Europe, it is going to be Jorge Alberola and Samuel Valentin once more.
And then Team Poland, we have a bit of a change. Tomasz Paradzic will be joining us once again, but Patrick Kruti, who didn't have the best race in Azerbaijan, will be replaced for Hungary by Stahulets.
Then Team Italy, we have Daniela Haddad and Alessio Di Capua, a complete change for the Italian squad. Oh, and we have some technical difficulties here. Aladar, are you back?
I think so.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, excellent. Sorry. No change then for the French team, who have Fabrizio Donoso and Antoine Desaluski performing for them again.
And finally, Team Turkey with Canik Inci and Ulas Özildirim. No change there either.
So that is the list of drivers that will be participating in this race at the Hungaroring. I'm very much looking forward to them getting into it here. We just got a few moments while we get everything in the lobby sorted out. And meanwhile, you can let us all know in chat who you are supporting. I'm sure we've got a lot of Ria Hungaria fans in there as well. Big fan of the Lands Netherlands chat. Chant rather. I'm not sure it works quite so well for the Dutchman, but nevertheless, good to see some support for both of those teams. Anyone else, feel free to make yourself known and throw out some support for your relative nations.
Yeah, actually, one of the drivers has just left the lobby, so it might take us a little bit longer to get everything sorted here. I can't actually tell who that was, but we are missing someone here. That is for sure. Let's hope they rejoin in time. It's not a Hungarian, it's not a Polish, it's not a Turkish driver. It is not one of the rest of the world drivers. I'm trying to figure out who it is.
One of the European drivers. I believe we are missing... who are we missing? We are missing... Alberola has dropped out of the... He'll be getting back here in just a moment's time, you would imagine, unless we're seeing an 11th hour substitution for Team Europe. It's interesting, actually, that Ruben Vallejo not slated to participate in this weekend, despite getting a podium last time out in Zandvoort. Not sure if he's got other commitments or what, but nevertheless, it wasn't a great first race for Team Europe, but both of their drivers are now back in the lobby, and everyone is readying up. We'll be getting underway shortly.
Yeah, what we do know for that Team Europe is that Pablo Hoglar is not participating tonight as he has a wheel issue, so he will not be able to join whatsoever. Unfortunately, technical difficulties prevent him from doing just that. You hear the beeps, so we are about to enter the lobby. There will be a formation lap followed by 25% of action around Hungary. And don't forget, no qualifying, reverse grid order for the top 15. As we are waiting, and the lobby is about to start and about to get underway. And oh my goodness, let's actually jump in here. Very quickly, just one more little sting here before we go in. And here we are in Budapest, and it is raining heavily. The skies have opened and they are pouring it down. I've never seen such heavy rain on the F1 game, I gotta be honest. Have you?
I think I've seen this, but very, very rarely. This is about as heavy as it gets right now. I'll be very surprised if they're on inters and not full wet tyres. And let's not forget, this isn't qualifying, this is the race itself. So the drivers will be starting this one in very, very wet conditions indeed. And that is going to provide them with an extra challenge off the start line.
Yeah, I think that's not just one extra challenge, that's multiple being thrown at the drivers right away. The last time I saw rain that heavy on an F1 game, or close to that heavy, the rain was so heavy that it caused a safety car. That was on the previous game, F1 2019, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see the same thing happen this time, where the rain alone causes a safety car as we try to... Give me a second here. There we go. As we try to look at the tires, and of course, there is absolutely no surprise right there. Full wets for everyone involved, and yeah, this is gonna be an interesting one for sure.
Absolutely, very, very, very intriguing indeed. And those full wet tires, it's one thing to drive in intermediate conditions on intermediate tires. To drive in full wet conditions with these blue wall tires can be so very difficult. And not only that, when the track starts to dry up, they can be so hard to keep in a reasonable operating window, because if the track gets a little bit too dry for them, they will just fall away completely. You'll have your rear or your front end just sliding all over the circuit, massive understeer as soon as any heat whatsoever gets into those front tires. So it's all about managing those tires once you get to the sort of transition phase. And until that point, it's about managing yourself and keeping your own car on the road. And it can be a bit of a nightmare to do, and we don't know what the outlook is for the weather for the remainder of the race. It may well be full wet conditions the whole way through, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. Uz Yildirim leads them round on this formation lap with Zabo Konyi starting on the front row. Here's the big hope for Team Hungary this weekend, and especially at this circuit with such a good starting position.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, this is the home track. We've seen how badly the home track went for the Dutch last week. Really a race to forget, unfortunately, for them. But maybe the Hungarians have a little bit better luck at their home race and are able to get a very, very good result out of this indeed. The full wet tire around this track. Let me just actually quickly get up my little spreadsheet here. It lasts it lasts 29 laps. We're not gonna get there. I think 18 is all they have to do, but that means a no stop for everyone involved. So you can't afford any damage either in this race.
Absolutely, you cannot, and we'll see how many drivers can avoid it as the lights are coming on for the second time today. And we are underway in Hungary, and it looks to have been a relatively clean start off the line for Uz Yildirim there. Zabo Konyi, though, it gets much better traction through third and fourth gear and is already alongside the Turkish driver as we head down towards turn one. Watch the Alfa Romeo. That is the Team Hungary car, and he is ahead of the Turk, and that is Hungary into the lead at the home race for Zabo Konyi. Meanwhile, just behind Alvaro Caraton, who tried to get reverse grid pole, is now trying to take the first position in the race, and there might be a look up the inside again from Uz Yildirim, who's not down and out of this one yet, but that is Caraton now up into lead. 3 leaders in as many corners, and someone is all over the rear end of Zabo Konyi as well, who himself is still battling with Ulash Uz Yildirim. That's Fabrizio Donoso now, who's trying to find his way through on the Hungarian, who got pushed out wide through turn 5. And as a result, it is Caraton from Uz Yildirim, then Donoso, but now Donoso is taking a look up the inside of Uz Yildirim. They make contact twice, 3 times through the chicane, but Uz Yildirim is able to solidify his hold on that position. Been a good start for Alessio Di Capio, who finds himself up in 5th. Istvan Pukki just made contact with Daniele Haddad. They're still side by side through the S section as well. Haddad getting pushed out wide by Pukki, who moves up into 6th position. Now Josh Idowu is looking to take advantage of the Italians' misfortunes. These guys are all over the road and then some all the way through this lap. As Josh Idowu sends it up the inside of turn 12, they make a bit of contact and he has to counter steer. And now it's Kalpanen he's battling with all of a sudden. No, sorry, that's Dezaluski in the French Renault. And it looks like Dezaluski is going to be able to make the move on Idowu. He's going to send it back up the inside of the final corner. But out at the front, it is Caraton leading the way.
Yeah, as we are starting lap 2 here, Caraton with a fantastic start. He wanted that reverse grid pole, wasn't able to get it because of Patrick Crutty's penalty and because Zabo Konyi did not slow or did slow down, I think, to get P14 because he wanted to be on the front row as well. And so now Karaton looking a lot better here after the first 3 corners and now after the first lap as well, as he leads the way, and he has already built a massive gap to Sabukonyi, or sorry, to Yildirim in second place behind.
Yeah, Yildirim himself is struggling to keep Fabrizio Donoso at bay. The Frenchman driving for the Renault team is definitely looking to get a wiggle on here. He wants to get past Yildirim because he will want to be challenging Karaton all the way. Those two drivers obviously know each other well, both F1 Esports Pro Series competitors for the last couple of years. But at the moment, Karaton has this all his own way, as he did last reverse grid race at Zandvoort. If you remember back then, it's only a penalty that stopped him from taking the win in that one. This time, he's done nothing wrong. No penalty is going to be apportioned for his driving so far. And Karaton is going to be feeling very, very happy about the current situation. His teammate Moreno has had to make progress up from 19th on the grid, but he has managed to do so, managing 6 positions thus far this race. Matthijs van Erven is the big loser. He's had to make a pit stop already this race at the very back for a front wing change. And Bari Borreman has also lost out in a major way. He has front wing damage, and he is into the pits at the end of lap 2.
Yeah, meanwhile, one thing to note with this wet weather racing, I think there's going to be important for a lot of viewers to understand that in this wet weather driving, the ERS deployment can be a lot more if you dare. And that's what I think it's going to come down to. How much do the drivers dare to use their ERS? Because you have to brake so early. You don't have enough grip, so you have to brake earlier. You regain more ERS throughout a lap. But you can use it, but at the same time, if you do, it will light up your rear tires a little bit. You have to be incredibly careful on the throttle, even more so if you do use the ERS. So how much are the drivers willing to do? How much are they willing to spend and willing to use and willing to risk to be faster on track? Where is the line? There's Donoso. Speaking of the line, Donoso just crossed it for the 3rd time. That is a 3-second time penalty for the Chilean-French driver here, as he is the first one to get on the board.
Yeah, and this has been a weakness of Donoso's game for years now. He's always struggled a little bit with avoiding those track limit extensions, those corner cuts that pick up the penalties. His pace is up there with the very best of them, especially on his day. He can be undrivable against for other drivers, but sometimes it is consistency and keeping all 4 wheels on the circuit that lets him down, and that has come up against him once again, rearing its ugly head here in Hungary. But nevertheless, he's still running around in 3rd, and that's not a bad position to be in. He is still trapped behind Ulas's Yildirim, who is holding up pretty much the entirety of the field right now. Everyone down to Samuel Valentin in 18th place is basically within 1 second of each other, all driving to the pace of Ulaş Yildirim that he is beating on that drum there in P2. Karaton is the only one who's truly free from him, and he is showing just how much more pace is available for those who can get past the Turk.
One thing that you hear a lot from drivers, if you ask them about wet weather, is that it's incredibly difficult to overtake. And I think we see this right here. Yildirim doing a great job, but you combine Hungary, where it's already difficult to overtake in the best of times, with wet weather, which makes it even harder, and you get exactly what we're seeing right now. Donoso being able to follow at around 7, 8, 9 tenths of a second, now falling back quite a bit, actually. That might open up an opportunity for Sabukonyi, as Borreman has left the session. That will be, I mean, it was pretty clear already that there will be no points for the Iranian driver, unfortunately, after the incident and the pit stop. But that pretty much just confirms it. But looking further up ahead, we see right here that Donoso is struggling, and Sabukonyi potentially with a move at the same time. You just can't do it. You try it off the line, and you just have so much more standing water there that it's just impossible to get any kind of traction going. And at this point, you're just aquaplaning or hydroplaning. There are different words for it, but you can't get a move going off the racing line. It's so tricky, and we see this right here. Donoso now finding back his pace and trying to get closer, at least, to Ulaş Yildirim.
It's interesting. Looking a bit further down the field into P12, where Jarno Opmeer currently resides, he isn't exactly rapid right now. He's falling about a second behind the two Finns up ahead, and Danny Moreno is all over the gearbox of that Mercedes. But I wonder if Jarno Opmeer is playing a canny game once again, because he will know that overtaking is nigh on impossible, no matter how fast you are. But if you can make sure that your tyres are in better condition than everyone else around you in the last couple of laps, maybe then an overtake is more plausible. And that might be what Opmeer is doing. He might just be holding on to these tyres a bit more than the rest of the field, sacrificing a little bit of pace, but it doesn't matter because there's no DRS he's going to fall out of range of here. So he can afford to let the Finns drive a couple of seconds up the road from him, as long as he stays fast enough to keep Moreno at bay. And there you see the double-edged sword that is Fabrizio Donoso. He picks up a 3-second time penalty, and on the same lap sets the fastest lap of the race. That's exactly what I was talking about earlier. The fact that he's on 6 seconds worth of penalties right now is not going to help his points haul at the end.
And here is Moreno looking to the inside of Opmeer into turn 1. Wasn't alongside enough to actually make the move stick, but he's getting impatient now behind the Dutchman here. Moreno wants past. He chooses different lines here as well. He chooses a bit more of an acute angle there to maybe set himself up, but it's so difficult. And one thing to note here as well, this corner right here of turn 5, very tricky, that one. You want to stay away from the inside curb there. And by the way, we are getting notification here from a couple of people in the chat that Opmeer apparently has damage. So it's not that he's holding anyone up, that he's trying to protect his tires. He has damage, and that means in this sort of condition, we're going to try and see. Yes, indeed, right side end plate is gone. Thank you so much to the chat for mentioning that. Yeah, right side end plate gone. That is front wing damage to the car of Jarno Opmeer. And that explains why he's struggling a little bit. He's still doing well considering that. The gap is just about a second to Kaupinen after all these laps.
The right side end plate is the one you want to go. If you had to pick an end plate to get removed from your car for this track, you would pick the one on the right-hand side. There are more left-hand or right-hand corners here in which the left-hand side of the front wing is doing all of the work. So it's not so bad as it could be for Jarno Opmeer, but nevertheless, it is still a significant disadvantage for the Dutchman to have to contend with. And that makes a lot of sense. I was trying to come up with an explanation for his relative lack of pace, but front wing damage does definitely fit that bill, no doubt about it. As let's see, has now Karinen maybe got a bit of front wing damage as well, because he's falling a little bit further away? I don't think so. I think the Finn's car is A-OK, but the gap is starting to form between himself in 10th and Antoine Desaluski in 9th. And I wonder about that wing damage picked up by Opmeer. I didn't see who caused it, what incident it was, but we do see Matthijs van Erven and Badia Burremand, who have gone by the wayside in this race with front wing damages. Of possible that Opmeer was involved in an incident with either of those two drivers. They did all start in around the same part of the grid.
Yeah, and it would be incredibly disappointing to see both Dutch drivers come together here. Let's hope for them as that not the case, but I mean, does it really matter at the end of the day? They're running in P12 and P19 right now. That would be 4 points for both of them combined. 0 for Van Erven and 4 for Opmeer. As Caraton sets the fastest lap, he sets the pace at the front. 6 seconds the gap now between Caraton and Oz Yildirim. So Caraton really showing how quick he is, and Donoso just, he can't get past. He's getting incredibly close, and he has to get past with the penalty that he has. He has to somehow find a way past Oz Yildirim to maybe make up that time in fresh and clean air. But right now, it doesn't seem like he's able to. The rain really hurting him here. And we look at the gap quickly. 6 seconds to Donoso's time. That will put him to P10 right now.
Yeah, that's going to hurt a lot when he comes over the finish line. Jarno Opmeer still holding on to that car for now. He's falling further and further away from the top 11 cars. But that's all okay for him right now. He knows that he's not really going to gain any positions in this race. He just wants to make sure he doesn't lose any to the cars behind. 2 Polish drivers, Poradzic and Stahulec, are currently sitting in 14th and 15th, and they would like to be able to get past, as would Danny Moreno, who has been looking at the word Ineos on the rear wing of that Mercedes for pretty much the whole race. thus far, even if sometimes it's obscured by the heavy, heavy rain we have here at the Hungaro Ring. But Karaton is looking mighty impressive in this race. And Yildirim is doing a good job as well. He doesn't have the most pace here, but he's not cracking under the pressure. And to be honest, that's all he needs right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you look into the mirrors and you see someone like Fabrizio Donoso, who, if I remember correctly, at the very first F1 esports event, he was second. He was the runner-up behind Brendan Lee. So you see someone like that behind you with that much of a history, with that much experience, with that much pace. Yeah, it wouldn't be a surprise if your knees get a little weak. But for Yildirim to hold strong and to keep that second place away from him is very impressive indeed. The pace might not be perfect here for Yildirim, but it is very, very impressive that he holds on to the second place throughout this whole race and doesn't crack under the pressure.
I want to say, just a quick moment to note what a disaster this is for Bari Boromand. Hasn't been able to get back in the session, hasn't regained control of that car. The race was already down the drain at that point anyway. And it might be that Boromand has decided just to simply sit this one out and wait for the third and final race of the day at China. But in our interview at the top of the show, he mentioned that he was looking forward to this track and not to Azerbaijan or China. And the race at Azerbaijan went pretty well for him. The race in Hungary has gone disastrously wrong. So it's definitely flipping his own expectations thus far. But the good news is, if the pattern continues, he's going to have a fantastic race in China. So it's not all over for him yet. And remember, while this race, the grid in this race was determined by the top 15 finishers in our first race at Baku, that is not so for the last race of the day. The last race in China will be determined by a qualifying session. So this is only for points, this race. It's not for grid positions.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to make the same point before you did it. I think Bari Boromand has quite a bit to look forward to in China. It is a tricky track. The soft tires around there are going to be a bit of an issue if we do get dry running, which I think after this race we're going to hope for, that we get some dry running in China. But the soft tires are tricky around there, but they are also mightily quick. They just don't last very long. Ultimately, I think Bari Boromand is going to have a good chance there with the short qualifying, the 18-minute qualifying session, followed by another 25% race at China. Here, however, no points for him. Idowu, meanwhile, his teammate in P8, so he would at least get himself 8 points there and would be able to... In fact, he would get 9 if we just quickly switch here. There we go. Yeah, the 6 seconds for Donoso would still make him fall down to P10. So Idowu would gain a position off of Donoso here and would get 7th place and 9 points at least for the rest of the world team. But we look at consistency among both drivers, as there is, I think, Boromand being lapped right now by Yildirim, by Donoso. Indeed, that is his ghost car, I think we have to say. That is not him in that car. But yeah, the Hungarian's doing really well right now. P4, P6 will turn into P3, P5 once the penalty is applied. Same for Italy. P5, P7 with De Capo and Haddad will turn into P4 and P6. And very, very strong showings for both of those teams. They should make up a bunch of points here in this race.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a godsend for Team Hungary, who are running a slightly weakened roster here due to the fact that Danny Berezde can't attend today. But nevertheless, a 3rd and a 5th in this race, as things are looking at the moment, would be very, very solid points. That might be the biggest points haul in the whole field, alongside maybe Team Spain, of course, who have Karaton leading the way. But the Hungarians will be getting one over on the Dutch. They'll be getting a similar points haul to the Spaniards, and they'll be getting one over on the rest of the world. And that is what they need when they're battling at the very front end of the order. Those are the teams that they're most worried about right now going ahead through the rest of this tournament. So this could be a very, very important damage limitation race for Team Hungary. Karaton, this is very, very reminiscent of last weekend for Alvaro Karaton. Last time it was something like 6 seconds he won at Zandvoort with in the end. That was a dry race, so that was incredibly impressive. Here today, it's just about gapping Ulas's Yildirim. But nevertheless, he's doing a fantastic job of it, building the gap lap after lap on the rest of the field. And it might just be me, but I'm noticing the rain is looking to get a little bit lighter right now.
Yeah, it seems like it. Let's actually go on board to see if that holds up. Maybe not. It may just be a bit of an optical illusion there from the outside. If you go on board, you see it's still pouring as ever. So I don't think that is the case. The question really is, if it does get lighter, well, is it worth it to pit? And you lose about 19.5 seconds here in the pit lane in dry conditions. I have to mention that, in dry conditions. Which means in the rain, you lose about probably 17 to 18 seconds roughly. You can always say about 10% less because that's just, you know, how much slower you have to go through some of the corners. And so if you're losing 18 seconds, how much are you going to gain from strapping on the intermediates? Well, usually, around most tracks, the gap there is around between 2.5 and 3.5 seconds a lap. So even with intermediates in full wet conditions, you're only losing 2.5 to 3.5 seconds a lap. It's not that massive because these tires are still able to push away a lot of the water. Just not all of it, but a lot of it. So, yeah, I think at this point we have crossed the point of no return where it isn't really feasible, even if it were to light up and it were to not rain as much anymore and we get to intermediate conditions, to pit. I think that moment has gone. At this point, the drivers have to go for the full wet tire to the end, even if it does light up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. But one thing it could do if the rain suddenly did abate, which I agree with you, it doesn't really look like it's going to do at this point. But if it did, it would get a bit harder for the rest of the drivers if it started to really get into basically a damp track rather than a wet track. The full wet tires become a real handful, really, really tough to keep those in any sort of working order. So it would be a bit of a challenge in the late stages of the race for these drivers. But right now, that is not worth discussing because it doesn't really look like it's going to happen. But as things are, the field is still pretty much strung out as it was, with everyone behind Ozil Durim all the way down to Tino Naukarinen in 10th, basically running at the same pace as one another, no one falling far behind the rest of the field in that particular space. And then you have Kauppinen a little bit of a ways off his teammate there, just about 1.1 seconds between the two Finns. And then Jarno Opmeer with that front wing damage, who is now 4 seconds behind the top 11 drivers. But critically for him, he's still holding Danny Moreno, Tomasz Paradzic, Stahulec, Akinci, Valentin, all behind him. None of them are able to make any headway past the Dutchman.
Meanwhile, we got some information earlier in the chat about what happened to Jarno Opmeer. Apparently, he made contact to the rear of one of the AlphaTauris. That's one of the Finnish drivers, likely to be Kauppinen, but definitely one of the Finnish drivers in lap 1. So apparently happened in turn 4 on lap 1. He made contact there and lost his end plate there. So it wasn't Van Erven or Borroman being involved in that. It was just the car in front, really, for Opmeer. But he's been holding that 12th place strongly ever since. And he couldn't move up the order, obviously, with that sort of damage. He's fallen more than 4 seconds behind. But at least he's holding that. That's still 4 points. And as we know, 4 points might make the difference. 4 points was the difference. If you think back to the qualifying events, 4 points was the difference between Team Finland qualifying and the second place of the second event not qualifying. So that's how close it got. And yeah, I think 4 points might in the end just decide it. And if somehow Team Netherlands wins this event at the end of it all by 4 points or less, I think Jarno Opmeer is going to look back at this race, if he does finish in P12, as Danny Moreno is very, very close behind him indeed. But he's going to look back and think, yeah, I did well here.
Yeah, no, it's definitely damage limitation, and he's limiting it in an admirable fashion. If you think about the fastest lap of this race, of course, no points available for the fastest lap, but it is a bit of it's very revealing for what's going on here in this race, because Caleton is half a second faster than anyone else with his fastest lap compared to the rest of the field. And that's because everyone else, you know, they can't really go any faster than Ulash's Yildirim is going at the very most. Some of them can't go any faster than Jarno Opmeer is going, those stuck behind him. And it's something we saw in the real-life Grand Prix in Spain as well. Just dirty air comes into huge effect. And in a circuit like this, where it's hard to overtake anyway, in conditions like this, the dirty air effect balloons. There's no DRS to negate it. And as a result, the drivers are basically just stuck in position. You can't say that Ido's had a bad race or something like that, even though he's actually gained 2 positions. But you can't say he's had a worse race than Caraton necessarily, because you don't know what he was capable of. It just simply, the information isn't there. As Danny Moreno picks up a 3-second time penalty in 13th, that is going to drop him out of the points. So that's a minor disaster for him. He must have been getting increasingly frustrated with gazing at that Mercedes rear wing ahead of him. And he'll really want to get past Jarno Opmeer now, because if he can make up for that 3-second time penalty by just driving clear of the rest of the cars behind, who will still be stuck behind Opmeer. But it's still a very tall order to get past.
Yeah, certainly. It looks like he's struggling there. He wants to find a way past, and he's trying to get creative. I think that's where that penalty is coming from, because Danny Moreno, like most F1 Esports Pro Series drivers, generally not much of an issue with track limits for the most part. Yeah, I think it's just him trying to be creative, trying to explore every bit of the track that he might find some grip on to potentially get past Jarno Opmeer here. And he's just been exploring a little bit too much in his pursuit of 12th place.
Yeah, indeed. The Spanish have tended to be prodigious explorers, and Moreno taking that a little bit too literally with those track limits, as you mentioned. As now Caraton moves ahead of 10 seconds up on Ulash Yildirim. It has been a dominating performance in this race from the other Spaniard in that number 1 car out there for Williams at the very front of the field. And he was always had his eyes on this race. Rather than race 1, Caraton was looking at this race. You could see from his conduct on the final lap of the race in Azerbaijan, he slowed right down to guarantee a good grid position, sacrificed several positions, 3 or 4, when it came to the checkered flag in Baku. But it has paid off in bucket loads for him here, as long as he can make it through the penultimate lap and then the final lap. And that is all we have left to go in this race.
Yeah, one thing generally in any kind of sport, in any kind of game, it works in both, is you have to know the rules of the game you're playing. You have to know the rules of the sport. If you do, you can find those situations. We've seen it in real F1 as well, many, many, many times, with the F-duct, with the double diffuser. You think back to all these technical innovations that were at some point either outlawed or all teams have used them. And it's always looking at the rule book, looking at what is allowed, what isn't within the rules. And Caraton did that to perfection. He looked at the rules, he looked at the points, and he thought, well, if I gain a position here, or if I lose a position here, that will lose me 1 point. But if I start higher, that could get me up to 4 points more. That's the difference between P1 and P2. So your return on just one position there is 3 points. So Caraton looked at that, at the points distribution and the reverse grid, and he thought, well, P15 looks pretty desirable to me. He didn't get it ultimately. He got P13, but he got the 2 positions at the start of the race, and now he's driving away on the final lap of the race. And Ulash Yildirim still holding second place. Donoso behind him. Donoso's going for the move. Donoso's going for the move into turn 1. He's alongside still. Oh, they're side by side, but I think Yildirim has the better run. He has the inside for the left-hander here. Donoso's going to have to try and hold it around the outside. Oh, and he gets pushed off a little bit there. Gets run to the outside. Oh, and they touch, and they make contact, and now, oh, Sabakonyi has to avoid there. And Yildirim is falling down to 3rd, almost 4th, as he makes a little bit of contact there with Sabakonyi. And Donoso is past, but how late? He has 6 seconds of penalties.
And Donoso is lucky that he didn't send Yildirim all the way around there. There was a lot of contact between the 2 cars on the way through turn 3. And Yildirim just about held the car together. But it's basically a pointless overtake for Fabrizio Donoso here. He might be able to jump Tino Naukarinen to build a gap worthy of 6 seconds. But that's all he can really hope for here. He can't hope to retain a podium position. It's too little and too late for Fabrizio Donoso. But he does manage to get some action on the final lap. But a man who hasn't seen much action, but he won't mind, is Alvaro Caraton, who takes the fastest lap of the race as he crosses the line to claim the win in race 2 of Event 2 in the Nations Cup here at the Hungarian Grand Prix, with Donoso coming across the line in second, but he will fall well down the order as Yildirim claims second, with Zaba Ukonyi third after starting on the front row, the two of those drivers. Donoso fell all the way to 11th in the end behind both Finnish drivers. Meanwhile, Moreno, when he crosses the line, also loses out heavily. Out of the points he goes, but his teammate Caraton could not be happier.
Yeah, and I think it's ultimately still a decent point haul for the Spaniards here, 25. They get ultimately, the Turks get 22, 21 for Yildirim, and 1 for Giannakinci in P15, but the Hungarians and the Italians, they're making some inroads here with Sabakonyi and Puki and Di Capua and Haddad, respectively, as we have a yellow flag in Sector 3. I think that is for Matthijs van Erven, who may have spun there in the final corner. Yeah, you see he's struggling mightily with the car there as he, I think, spun across the line, but we want to catch the winner here, of course. It is Alvaro Caraton. He won last week in the reverse grid race, got that taken away by a penalty. I don't think there will be a penalty. Everything looked clean on lap 1, and beyond that, he didn't have much to battle with.
Yeah, and that sniping of not exactly managing to snipe reverse grid pole, but a solid spot on the reverse grid. As you mentioned, the rule bending, it's exactly emblematic of a certain Michael Schumacher that Alvaro Caraton is using as his model here on the podium. It's exactly the sort of thing Schumacher would have done. You remember back in, I think, 1998, he crossed the line. He won the race while serving a drive-through penalty in the pit lane. It's that sort of rule bending. And it has paid off well for Caraton here, winning the race by 15 seconds. And no talk of rules in the race itself. He dominated this one from start to finish. Fantastic drive from him.
Yeah, certainly. And Ulas Yildirim as well in P2. What a job to hold on to that position. He did ultimately lose it to Donoso, who was, of course, stuck with a 6-second time penalty there. But yeah, it was still a great defense there. And we get the standings very, very quickly here into the chat. So Team Hungary with a P3 podium finish and a P5 from Sabakonyi and Puki are still leading at 113, 11 points ahead of the rest of the world team. Josh Idowu gets a P7 here. I think that may be that the rest of the world team was actually leading after round 4, and now Hungary has taken back the lead. Netherlands down in 3rd with 99, Spain 4th at 95, Italy 5th at 84, and we now leave the session. 6th is Finland with 73, and we are waiting for the other teams' standings to come in. Poland is 7th at 64 points. They obviously had a pretty decent result last race, or the first race in Azerbaijan. Here, not so much. And yeah, I think P8 should be posted rather shortly. The Future Esports channel, the guys running that being so kind to post that for us there in the chat. We're working on something to bring this to you in a bit of a different format, but we weren't able to get that all set up in time. So it's going to take probably 1 week until we can show you that in a little bit of a better format, as the drivers are setting up a new lobby. And we will be right back after some more words from our partners.
It's time now. Your blood is burning. Your stamina is rising. Greet all the challenges in your way.
What will you like today? Another Cloud 2 Classic?
I'll stick with the usual. Maybe take a little bit off the sides.
Oh, that's fresh.
The HyperX Cloud 2 Wireless. Legendary comfort goes wireless.
Hey, watch it!
And welcome back once again, everybody, for the third time today to the ORL Future Esports and Next Level Racing Nations Cup by Mobiuz Gaming, the second round of our 6-round tournament on F1 2020. My name is Aladar. Joining me in the commentary box, as has been all day and will continue to for this final race, is Badgerman. And we are about to bring you the qualifying and race at the Chinese Grand Prix for our third and final race of the day. I'm looking forward to getting into that in just a few moments' time. We're just waiting now for the lobby to get set up.
Yeah, let's quickly look at the format for that round 6. It is going to be, once again, a short qualifying, 18 minutes, one session, no Q1, Q2, Q3. You know the drill by now if you've watched any kind of league racing. Usually, they always use that short 18-minute qualifying session, followed by a 25% race around China, which will amount to 14 laps for the drivers. And I've alluded to it a little bit during the Hungarian Grand Prix. The soft tire doesn't really last that long. It is a 14 lap race. The soft tire lasts 7 maximum. The medium, however, lasts 16, so that can go a long way. The soft tire also struggles with temperature. It overheats very quickly. However, it is, if you keep it in good shape and in temperature, in fresh condition, 1.4 seconds a lap faster than the medium. So big risk, big reward if you can keep it in check. Let's quickly look at the track itself as well. We see it in the top right there, the Shanghai International Circuit. Most of you are very familiar with this track indeed. One of the longest straight there on the back straight. You see it at the very bottom of that track map. And of course the 2 snail corners, turns 1, 2, 3, 4, and turns 11, 12, and 13 there in the very top and the bottom right of the track map. A great sneaky overtaking opportunity there in turn 6. That is at the very top right of that map. And yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting one. We hope it won't rain there, I think for pretty obvious reasons. But it is a track where it's quite easy to overtake, obviously into the hairpin of turn 14. Certainly a great opportunity right there. And yeah, many a chance there for the drivers to get some overtakes done. And I'm very much looking forward to this one, and I hope you viewers are as well. The drivers are in the session. We're just waiting for everyone to ready up. And we have a question there in chat that I quickly want to answer. Is Jarno leading? This is a team event, not a driver's event, so we're only keeping track of the points for the teams. And the standings were posted earlier in the chat. We can just quickly go through them once more. It is Team Hungary that leads the way at 113 points. Team Rest of the World is in second with 102. Third place is Netherlands with 99. Spain in fourth with 95. Italy fifth with 84. Finland sixth with 73. Poland seventh with 64. Team Europe in P8 with 43. Turkey ninth with 39. And last but not least is France with 35 points. That is the standings right now. You heard the little beeping there again. The drivers were ready, but for some reason someone changed the track from China to Netherlands and then changed it back to China. I think that may be a message by the lobby host. I'm not going to say who it is, but I think they might be fancying a little bit of Netherlands more than they want to race to China.
Well, actually, I can tell you what actually happened, and that's that Floris Vyers left during the countdown, so they had to abort the countdown. Not enough drivers unreadied up. There are only 19 drivers. We now have all 20 drivers back in the lobby. And speaking of Floris Vyers, he will be taking the place of Matthias van Erven alongside Jarno Upmeer for the Dutch team here. We are now loading into the session, so we will show you those drivers. We'll get to understand those teams once we get into qualifying, which we'll do so in just a few moments' time. But before we do that, just take a look at this quick little video here. All right, and welcome back then, everybody. Just still waiting for one driver to load on into the session. But the Shanghai International Circuit, it's a circuit I like very much. You mentioned earlier overtaking opportunities, particularly into the hairpin. But that's the great thing about this circuit, is there are at least 4 overtaking opportunities, maybe even 5, if you count turn 9, which is a bit of an iffy one. But outside of that, there's turn 11, which is decent. There's turn 6, which is a very good opportunity. And there's turn 1, which is a pretty good opportunity as well. So it allows some creative battling, which is something that I always value highly in a circuit. Some circuits is easy to overtake, but you see all the overtakes in the same place. That's less interesting than if you can try and make your advantage pay at various different parts of the circuit.
Yeah, and it pays off as well here to potentially go for a slightly higher downforce setup than you usually would, because you have just so many opportunities where you can get a little bit creative and just try something different than you normally would. Whereas around some of the other tracks, you'd rather go for that low downforce setup. You want to go for that super top speed to make your overtakes just that much easier. Around here, not so much. You might be fancying a bit more, and I think we... it says lap 1 of 18. Never mind, it just switched, thank goodness. I was worried for a split second there. We don't need to check the tires right now. They're all going to be on softs anyway. But it is quite dark indeed once more. It's like it's a running theme of the ORL Future Esports Next Level Racing Nations Cup by Mobiuz Gaming here, that we get just a lot of cloudy, overcast events, and we get so once more. There might be some rain coming for the race. Again, we hope not, but it is always a possibility. So let's hope it's not the case. The first one out on track is Tino Naukarinen in the AlphaTauri for Team Finland as he rounds the track. And we're going to go on board with him once he starts his first flying lap, just to show you, as he gets a massive slide on there on the out lap. That is not how you want to warm up these tires. They get pretty warm all by themselves. I've mentioned it before. They only last 7 laps, and they do struggle with temperature in terms of keeping them cold enough or cool enough, but they certainly don't struggle with getting them warm. That is for sure.
Indeed, and many drivers out there on outlaps already. And Jorge Alberola, I did notice, was struggling to load into the session. He left in the loading screen. He hasn't returned quite yet, so hopefully for Team Europe, Alberola will be able to get back here in just a few moments' time. I'm quickly going to do my best to run you through the drivers that have changed here for our third event of the day. We have Dario Yemulo coming in for Daniele Haddad, who participated in Hungary for the Italian team. Yemulo, who sat out at Hungary but raced in Azerbaijan, is now racing here in China. And who else do we have that's new? We have Floris Vaers, as I've already mentioned. He is replacing Matthias van Erven. And Kamil Komoni is coming in for Team Poland at the expense of Stahulets. And those are all of the changes, I do believe.
Yeah, no more changes. Only 3 teams actually switching out some of the drivers. And here we are now with Tino Naukarinen coming through the final corner. Let's go on board with the AlphaTauri. Here we go on the main straight. You get a pretty good one. This is a DRS straight as well, so a good overtaking opportunity. There's a car coming out of the pit lane, moving quickly out of the way for this first snail corner. Turns 1 and now 2. It tightens up a lot here, and the shortest run is the best. Turn 3, now turn 4. Turn 4 is flat out as you start to accelerate. Got to be careful that you don't spin the car. Turn 5 here, just a little bit of a kink, completely flat out. Turn 6, good overtaking opportunity. You can send it here quite well. And it's a corner that is a lot tighter than it looks as you drive it. Turn 7, wonderful flat or almost flat out left-hander. The right-hander here, turn 8, you have to start lifting and go a bit slower there. Turn 9 and 10, double left-hander. You want to set yourself up through the first one for the second. Now heading to turn 11. This is going to be very important here. You can overtake here possibly. Difficult, but a chance. Here's the detection point for the next DRS zone in the middle of turn 12. Now through turn 13, get on the power as early as possible because you have over a kilometer of straight right in front of you. DRS open right here on the line. DRS is opened, and this is just a massive run. Great overtaking opportunity here for any driver who is running behind another with DRS and without the guy in front. Through the hairpin, turn 14 and 15, and now one more corner to go. Best potential to invalidate your lap, and it is turn 16. Did he invalidate his lap there? He might have.
He did indeed. 1:29.0 was the lap time. It wouldn't have been good enough compared to Tomasz Poradzic, who goes up there into the top of the order, the only driver in the order for the time being with a 1:28.5. Ido joins him, but a tenth slower for the rest of the world. There is a Renault coming through the final corner. That is going to be Donoso, who has invalidated. Let's see what Donoso's teammate Dezaluski is doing as Boromand goes to the top. Dezaluski coming through now the hairpin. 1 corner left to go for the Frenchman. And Team France still in need of a big result. They had an okay one at the first race of the day, but the second one did not go in their favor. And that's an invalidation in the final corner from Dezaluski. It was a 28.9 anyway, so it wouldn't have been terribly good. And a lot of drivers struggling with those invalidations early on as Zabukonyi goes into 4th, make that 5th as Komoni moves ahead of him.
Yeah, currently rest of the world in Poland for the top 4 spots there. So they get a good start here to the session Let's look, meanwhile, at one of the race winners earlier tonight. Jano Opmer coming through the hairpin here, and he has one more corner to go. Will he invalidate in the final one? It looks good. He keeps 2 wheels on the track there, and that should be, yep, it is, in fact, provisional pole position there for the Dutch driver. Into P1 he goes.
Yeah, the next one to challenge will be Alessio Di Capua, driving for Team Italy. Had a relatively quiet race in Hungary, but a lot of people had a quiet race in Hungary. Di Capua did make up a fair few positions on the grid, though, and now's a big opportunity. Qualifying pace is the speciality for Di Capua. Sometimes it goes awry in the races, but his qualifying is absolutely on point. And let's see if he can live up to that here in China as he rounds the hairpin. 1 corner left to go. He hasn't invalidated. Will he invalidate in this final corner? No, he will not. He just holds on to the car there, crosses the line, and it's only good enough for P5 for the Italian. Ahead of Commogni, behind Idowu, and I'm sure the fact that he almost lost the car in the final corner definitely lost him at least a tenth there.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, I think he's going to be pretty happy that he actually was able to finish that lap, not invalidate, and still get a decent time out of it. Of course, you want a bit more there, and you don't want to have that slide, but I think he'd rather take that slide and about a tenth or two lost than an invalidation and no time on the board at all.
Absolutely. More than half of the field have fallen prey to those invalidations, so just getting that lap time on the board, as you mentioned, definitely a big boon for those who have managed it. Even Samuel Valentin, who's sitting in 9th and last of those who have set a time, a second off the pace, is still on the board, and that is very important right now. It may well gain him a few positions on the grid if people continue to invalidate. Now let's take a look at Floris Vaers, the Dutchman, ex-F1 esports driver for the likes of Haas. Let's see, and I think Racing Point as well, actually, driving in a Mercedes, of course, at this race for the Dutch team as he enters turn 1 there. Nice and committed, keeping it really close to the right-hand side of the circuit, not letting the car drift out wide whatsoever. There are multiple different philosophies you can take through that first corner, and Vaers is all about taking the shortest possible route through turns 1, 2, and 3, now through 4 and 5, and towards the hairpin of 6, braking hard here. A little bit of a lock-up on the inside, but that's not going to cause any issues. Avoiding the curb on the exit means you get a nice smooth run on the power towards turn 7, which is easy flat, and then on the exit towards turn 8, where you start braking. It's a curved braking zone now for turn 9. Very tricky to get on the power here, very slippery, but he's made it without any issues, using all the road on the exit of turn 10. Now down into the braking zone of turn 11. It looks to have been a good sector 2 time there. The track lit up purple, though sometimes that can lie to you as he heads through turn 13, the very, very long right-hander. Let's see, what is Floris Vaers doing? His lap time is okay. It's on track to be somewhere near his teammate. He's about a tenth of a second off in the first 2 sectors. So let's see how, if he can nail this final sector, he might move up to the very top of the order. Let's see, the hairpin. Ooh, a little bit wide maybe on the exit of the hairpin. That might have just cost him half a tenth or so. Now, the final corner itself, avoiding the invalidation, but cutting perfectly. Very smooth there from Vaers as he crosses the line. Oh, and he did lose time there in that final sector. Only good enough for 7th.
Yeah, it looked pretty good for the first 2 sectors, and then that hairpin, you mentioned it, he just ran a little bit wide there, and you don't want to run too wide. Of course, at some point an invalidation would happen, but more importantly, you just lose so much grip on what is the beginning of another acceleration zone that isn't super long, but it certainly is long enough to cost you a little bit of time down the road. And we see exactly that right there. 2 tenths lost just in the last sector alone. If he can find that time in his next runs, then he might be on for a pretty good start here. I would say the top 2 rows certainly possible for Floris Vaers.
This is a good lap for Tomasz Poradzic right now. He's a couple of tenths up on his own best time. He's about a tenth of a second ahead of Jano Opmer through the 2nd sector there. And this could well be to the top of the order for the Polish driver. He looks very strong in qualifying in Baku. We were expecting that. Here in Shanghai, it's a different story, but he's looking good for now. Let's see how he handles the hairpin. Will he throw it away like we saw from Floris Vaers? Again, a little bit deep, but not in the same way. Did manage to collect the car up on the exit. Didn't quite make the apex, but sometimes you can get away with that in the slower corners. through that final corner, using all the road and not a jot more, and across the line to go to the top. Provisional pole now for Tomasz Paradzic. Boromand has invalidated his attempt. Let's see what his teammate Josh Idowu can do. He's not really getting a slipstream. He could be getting a slipstream from his teammate, who has invalidated his own lap, but Boromand isn't really stopping to let Idowu get the best slipstream he possibly can. So let's see, through the hairpin for Idowu now. The Welshman nails it through there. No trouble whatsoever for him as DiCapua gets one out of the way on his outlap. And Idowu's decided that lap isn't good enough either, so he is heading back into the pits to join his teammate.
Yeah, it might be that he was caught a little bit there with some dirty air by the drivers in front, especially DiCapua there on the exit and through the hairpin, that he may have fancied his chances of just going back into the pit lane and trying once more on another run. So maybe that was what influenced that, as we are looking at Fabrizio Donoso right now, who seems to be going slow here. Yeah, no ERS deployment for him. He's just setting up a lap, I think, or he may have invalidated already. Danny Moreno, meanwhile, is running through the middle sector as well. That seems a bit more on pace for him here, as he is just about to end the middle sector. And that so far looks nicely. Where could he slot in? Yellow flag sector 1 and 2. I think that's just cars letting each other by, making sure that they don't run into each other there, as now he goes down the main straight. There's a car on the side letting him by. That I think was a Haas. And now through the hairpin, 3 more corners to go. 2 real corners, let's be honest. Turn 15, I wouldn't exactly count as a corner. And turn 16, invalidation central. Can he do it? He stays on track. What's the time going to be? It is a 1:28.2. It is provisional pole position for Danny Moreno and Team Spain.
And he did all the work there in Sector 1. He gained a 10th. Everyone is in the 23.3s. He was in the 23.2s. He found an extra bit in that first sector that no one else has been able to locate thus far in this qualifying session. Now his teammate Caraton is entering the hairpin. Caraton is a little bit slower than Moreno was on his lap, but he's still very much in the ballpark of the top 5 or 6 drivers. As long as he nails this final sector, it's all looked pretty good for him across the line, and he goes up in a second to join his teammate on the provisional front row. Team Spain come out of nowhere. They invalidated their first attempt, but on their second runs, they have absolutely nailed them right now, and the competition are now looking to them for their biggest rivals.
Yeah, quick reminder, Spain is only 18 points behind Team Hungary, only 7 points behind Team Rest of the World, and only 4 points behind Team Netherlands. So they have a pretty good chance, if they can somehow hold on to this 1-2, or just generally get a very, very decent result with both drivers, they have a really good chance of taking the lead after round 2 of this Nations Cup here. They have a really good opportunity at their hands right now, with both drivers being as strong as they are, it seems, around this track. Where is Jan Opme right now? I think he's on a slow run right here. Yeah, indeed he is. Dario Yamulo, is he going slowly? Yes, he is. No ERS deployment. We go on board with Alessio Di Capua, who's right behind Danny Moreno, but he's taking it slow too. He is on hot lap mode, but he's taking it slow as well. And
Floris Vyers is starting a flying lap here for the Dutch team. Everyone else either on an in-lap or in the pit. So once again, Vyers takes center stage, as he did 5 or so minutes ago in this session. Currently sitting only down in P14. And the Dutch team currently sitting 3rd in the standings. They will want Vyers to be right up there with Otmir to back up the reigning F1 Esports Pro Series champion, who has been scoring points race in, race out, pretty much non-stop, apart from at Zandvoort for the Dutch team. But his teammates haven't necessarily always been there alongside. Van Erven had a good result with P4 at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, but other than that, the Dutch drivers haven't really been up to this level of Jarno Opmeer, shall we say. And Floris Vyers needs to find an extra bit of pace here to make sure he can be at that level. He's a little bit up on his best time, but his Sector 2 time was not really fantastic. So he's going to need a lot in this final sector if he's going to move himself any way up the order whatsoever. A 26.4 is what he managed through that middle sector. That is a 1/10.5, maybe 2/10 off of where he really wants to be right now. And let's see if he can make amends for it in the final part of this lap. as he breaks heavily into the hairpin. Again, that looked a little bit deep from Flores Vaz, as we saw on his last attempt into the final corner, and he's not happy with it. It's back into the pits for him. He will get one more crack at it.
Yeah, I think it's the smart choice here to just say, hey, you know what, this lap wasn't it, this wasn't the run, I'll abort this one and I'll just go again. He has the time for it. Some of the drivers are getting out on track right now, including his teammate Jano Opmeer, but a lot of drivers are just getting ready, so he will have enough time. He only has to get out of the pit lane by about the 1 minute 50 mark, I would say, maybe 1 minute 40 if he really wants to have a chance at his final run. Otherwise, it might be too late. As Jano Opmeer is burning as much fuel, this is awful to listen to, but this is the practice that some of the drivers employ here to burn some of the fuel if they have overfueled the car a little bit. I mean, it's the easiest way, you know, you just high revs, low gear, you're slow and you're burning a lot of fuel. It's not the most eco-friendly way, but thankfully we're talking about a virtual game here and not real life, so all is fair game here. And we see that right there with Jano Opmeer. I did not expect this to go on board. I was not ready for that sound. Apologies to all the viewers as well who had to hear that. But it brings up an interesting point, I think, that it is so important that everything is right on your last run. You want everything to be perfect. You want the fuel to last perfectly. You want to get every corner right. You want your tires to be in perfect condition. It all plays together. There's so many moving parts, and there's so many things that can go right or that can go wrong. So, yeah, very, very interesting to see there and sort of get into, really into the engine almost, into the working parts of what is going on, as Donoso is one of the first ones starting his lap here. He's currently in P18, one of 3 drivers to not have set a lap time yet. So he desperately needs one and needs to not invalidate.
Yeah, and he needs a big result for Team France because Desaluski is currently sitting only in 16th right now, just ahead of Samuel Valentin. Jorge Alberola, by the way, he invalidated in the final corner of his outlap, meaning that this next flying lap he is also invalidated. That's a bit of a disaster for him, currently still sitting on no laps on the board. Same as Donoso, same as Istvan Pukki as well. Team Hungary leading the way in the standings, and they can't afford to have Pukki failing to get a lap together. Donoso, that's fast. That's very fast. Through Sector 2 there from Fabrizio Donoso. He is on track to maybe take the top spot here if this final sector is good. He was about a 10th up on where Moreno was when he got to the end of the second sector there. He might try and dip in for a bit of slipstream with the Team Europe car there. He doesn't even bother. Jorge Alberola getting out of the way there for Fabrizio Donoso, who's deep. He's deep there into the hairpin. That's going to have cost him a 10th or so, and that might be the difference between provisional pole and just a spot in the front few rows as he holds onto the car through that final corner, crosses the line and goes second. And you can see just how close that was. He would have gone to the top if he just braked a tiny bit earlier for that hairpin, but nevertheless, he can be relatively happy with that one for now. Let's see what Tomek Paradzic is doing. He's coming towards the end of his flying lap as the 2 Turks have crossed the line. They'll be starting no higher than 13th and 17th. Paradzic now through that final corner is Opmeer to the top. And Paradzic, can he knock him off? No, he cannot. Opmeer is still there at the very top of the order. Kamoni is going to be the next one across the line, the second of the Polish drivers. Let's see what he'll be able to do. He knocks Paradzic off of the front row and goes into second. Incredible stuff from Kamil Kamoni. Now Jabukoni crosses the line. That's only good enough for 9th, but that's something for Team Hungary right now. Samuel Valentin, his qualifying is over. Josh Idowu coming to the line. It's disappointing thus far. It's up in a 6th. That's a little better for him, but it's going to fall back down when Borman comes across the line because he takes provisional pole by 1,000th of a second. Now it's up to the Spaniards. They were dominant in the second phase of this qualifying session. Can they do it here in the final moments here as Moreno crosses the line? It's only 3rd for him, and Caraton has already crossed and he'd invalidated. And with that, I think they might just have it. Kalpanen's backed out. Yemulo's pushing. He's only good enough for 11th. DiCapua is still out there. Vaz is still out there. Here comes DiCapua. He's invalidated as well. And I think with that, that is it in qualifying. Burmand takes pole position with Jano Opmeer alongside. Moreno 3rd, Common 4th, and Paradzic 5th.
Yeah, rest of the world, Spain, Poland, France, all doing fantastically well. And I think the one team out of those 4 that needs it the most is Team France. They are currently last in the standings, surprisingly. I mean, we looked at their lineup before the event and we saw Nicolas Longue, we saw Fabrizio Donoso, we saw Antoine Zaluski, and we thought, well, I mean, this is a fantastic team. This is a team that might challenge for potentially the win, the championship here, the whole Nations Cup, and to see them all the way down in 10th with only 35 points, really, really surprising. So great to see them finally getting a bit of good luck here and having a really good run. Now they just need to turn it into points in the race, but certainly a good opportunity for them, P6 and P9 with Donoso and Zaluski. Poland as well, they're sort of in the middle of nowhere. They are 20 points behind P5 Italy, and they are 21 points behind P8 Team Europe. The only team they're sort of battling with is Finland, that's 9 points ahead of them over 6th place. But again, we look at the caliber of Poland, and they surely as well are at that point where they can make something happen. And this might be their opportunity to move further up the order and close back in on the top 5.
Absolutely. I've been particularly impressed with Kamil Kamonyi, who has been showing up big time in a field of very experienced and very fast drivers. 5 drivers within a 10th of a second of each other. We couldn't be more excited. We couldn't have a better stage set for the race here in China. We'll be there in a few moments' time. But for now, just take a look at these quick messages. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you enjoyed those messages, and we hope you're about to enjoy this race alongside us. My name, Jacob Hancock's also known as Aldar, and alongside me, Austin Smith, also known as Badgerman. And we are here for the 3rd and final race of Event 2 of the ORL, FuturEsports and Next Level Racing Nations Cup by Mobiuz Gaming. And the stage is well and truly set for the race here in China. 5 drivers within a 10th of a second in qualifying, 1,000th separating Boromand and Otmir at the front. And these drivers, they have a bit of a history from Event 1. Let's not forget they weren't too happy with one another after what happened at Zandvoort when they collided in that reverse grid race. They are 2 of the fastest competitors we have in this tournament, and they are starting on the front row. It's a formidable front row with Moreno in 3rd as well. He has been very solid. Podiums after podiums for Team Spain thus far in the competition. Kamil Kamonyi in 4th with a fantastic result for the young Pole. He'll be feeling very, very good about that. Tomek Paradzi's just behind him as well. He'll be surprised to see a teammate ahead of him, but I'm sure he won't mind too much, given that it is a team event. Fabrizio Donoso will be starting 6th with Josh Edowu in 7th, backing up his teammate Boromand. Caraton has managed 8th for Spain. Zaluski in 9th for France. And Zabo Konyi is the first of the Hungarians in 10th. And the Hungarians are currently leading in the points, but with a qualification of 10th and 17th here in China, it's a bit of an uphill battle to maintain that position.
Yeah, and just quickly, let's think back to round 1, race 1. Who were the 3 drivers finishing on the podium? It was Jano Opmer, who's currently starting in second. It was, of course, Danny Berezny, who won, who isn't here tonight. But it was also Barry Borman in third. So 2 of the 3 podium sitters there are in the top 3 spots here. And the same is true if we think back to Britain. It was Jano Opmer who won there. And it was Danny Moreno who finished in third as well, with Danny Berezny, I think they're being second. So we see all 3 drivers with plenty of experience on the podium. Will they be able to translate that into a podium in this race?
We'll have to wait and see as the drivers are now lining up on the grid. Of the drivers outside the top 10, only Chanakinchi has opted for the softs. Everyone else going for those medium tyres. Keep an eye out for DiCaprio as well. He's out of position. He's a fast driver down in 15th. But for the most part, keep your eyes glued to the very front of this race because it's going to be a titanic battle as the lights come on. And Burman and Opmer lead the field away, with Opmer getting the slightly better start of the 2, and he's already going to be looking to get up the inside in towards turn 1. They make contact already. Burman is pushed a little bit wide there, and Opmer is up the inside and into the race lead. Burman trying desperately to hold it around the outside for turn 3, but he cannot do it, and now that leaves the door open for Danny Moreno to try and go around the outside of him. The Iranian loses 2 positions off the start, and now Kamil Kamoni might be close behind him, but no, the pole's not in a position to take advantage. Burman's not done yet. He sends it back up the inside of Danny Moreno as there's yellow flags further back. That's Jorge Alberola, who's fallen by the wayside. It's been a poor start for Puki and Yildirim as well. There's Aluski's losing positions. That is DiCapua, who's lost it on the exit of turn 6. But at the front, it's all calm, with Opmer leading from Moreno and the unfortunate Burman.
Yeah, massive battle there already. Borman losing out initially, but this is all far from done. 14 laps in this race. We see here a predicted pit stop strategy. We expect the soft runners to come into the pit lane by lap 4, possibly earlier, because the soft tires do not last very long. So we could see some pit stops lap 3, lap 2, potentially even at the end of this lap, at the end of lap 1. Certainly a possibility. We will see what they do, as here goes Moreno for the move on Opmer. He's got it.
Nicely done there by Danny Moreno. Further back, the poles are swapping positions, but that's probably amicable between Kamoni and Porajic. Porajic now is going to be closing down those front 4. He wants to make sure he stays well within this battle, because he'll know a race win is potentially on the cards if the pit stops fall in his favor. And it's going to be a very tough job deciding when to pit, because you want to make sure that you do not get held in the pits. We saw how much that hurt Josh Adowu's race when he started from pole in Azerbaijan. He pitted and came out 6th in the order. It was a disaster for him due to being held in the pit lane. And these drivers want to make sure they can avoid that fate at all costs. But Danny Moreno is currently leading the way. He's taken first position from Jano Opmer, the Dutchman, happy in second for the time being, with Bari Borman just behind him in third. Meanwhile, at the very back of the order, Yildirim and Alberola have both had to come into the pits at the end of lap 1.
Yeah, not just that. There's another car at the back of the order right now. It is Antoine de Zalewski, but he's not there because of any on-track issues. He had his game crash, so he disconnected from the session. He is not in control of his own car. Let's hope he can rejoin, but that is another massive blow to the French team here.
There's yellows in the first sector. That is Alberola retiring from the race there in the Ferrari. So it's another poor race for Team Europe. They have not had a good event 2 whatsoever. With Vallejo and Hoglar not participating, they have struggled. Out at the front, Moreno leads from Opmer, then Borman, then Porajic and come on, the 2 poles, followed by Idowu. So the 2 poles are making the sandwich, with the bread being the rest of the world cars, and Idowu's into the pits, so is Porajic. They are the first ones to pull the trigger here. And how many drivers behind them are going to pit? Zabo Konyi's into the pit. Akinci also. Akinci is pitting off of soft tyres as well. He starts from outside the top 10 on those softs. These guys will all go for mediums. Let's see if any of them get held.
Yeah, we're going to see here P14. There's Sabakonyi right now. A couple cars going past. That is Akinji. There is Idowu just in front. Porajic is going to leave the pit lane here. They're on mediums, and they will go to the end of the race on those medium tires. They will definitely make it long enough, as we only have 6 cars now on the soft tires. Let's quickly bring in the interval here to see how close it is between the top 11 right now. DiCapua and Pookie have fallen off significantly, and then of course it enters Aluski as well with his game crashing, and that is Parajic downwards all the way to Akinji, who have pitted, and so they are on the different strategy. What are Moreno, Opmer, Boromand, Komoni, Caraton, and Denosa going to do? Are they going to respond? Are some of them going to respond? I'm pretty sure the Spaniards are not going to double stack here. So one of them is going to have to go for 4 laps. Most likely Caraton. Here goes Opmer, meanwhile, for the move on Moreno. And that is a move taken. That is Opmer into the lead of the race. And that might bode well. It might bode not so well if we see 5 cars going into the pit lane now.
Let's see, will Opmer use this momentum to pit? Yes, indeed, he does. I think that was calculated there from Jarno Opmer. He wanted to be the first one into the pit lane. Boromand will follow him in. So will Komoni. So will Caraton and Donoso. As Yamulo sets the fastest lap of the race already on medium tyres. Those mediums coming online nice and early here. And by the way, if Idowu didn't have bad luck, he wouldn't have any luck at all. He was held in the pit lane once again. It only lost him time to Parajic, but right now it might lose him out relative to the rest of the field who have come into the pits here. Boromand has been able to jump Opmer in the pit lane, so it's not worked out well for the Dutchman either. Where will they come out relative to Idowu? They will be ahead of him. Caraton is behind. Komoni has lost out in a major way in the pit lane as well. Zabo Konyi is trying to get around the outside of him, and that's unfortunate for the young Pole, who had a great start to this race. But Parajic has been able to pull off the undercut. He is effectively leading the way with Boromand in second, Jarno Opmer in third, and Josh Idowu in fourth.
Yeah, meanwhile, just a quick mention here about this track. You lose about 22.5 seconds in the pit lane from a pit stop, so we can quickly make the calculation here. Dani Moreno in the lead right now. He is likely to rejoin behind Parajic. It's going to get really close with Boromand. It depends on if he he won't get held most likely, because he'll be the only one to pit. The medium runners that started on the mediums, Yamulo downwards, they are not going to be coming into the pit lane. But Moreno, yeah.
Donoso, sorry, he just went into the back of Zabo Konyi into turn 11, almost sent the Hungarian spinning, and then took the position as a result. It was a bump pass there from the French driver. And Zabo Konyi will not be happy with that whatsoever. He's already looking to try and take the position back on Donoso. He thinks about the dive bomb. Donoso brakes later, brakes maybe too late, and that might give the opportunity for Zabo Konyi with the undercut here as Dani Moreno pits from the race lead. Donoso holding on ahead of Zabo Konyi, but the Hungarian will be absolutely furious with the conduct shown by Donoso there. Where's Moreno? The pits in. Oh, he's ahead. How has he done that? He's pulled off the overcut. He is ahead of Parajic.
That is remarkable from Dani Moreno. He must have gotten a massive, massive quick pit stop there as well. I mean, all the drivers do get the same 2.5 second pit stop, but maybe his pit entry was better than Parajic. That might explain it. There's always a bit of variance with these sorts of pit losses. It's always just an estimate. It's not a guess, but it's an estimate. It can always be half a second quicker or slower. And Dani Moreno must have gotten a great in-lap there on Tomasz Parajic to keep the lead of the race here. And now they've got Istvan Pukki right in front. So it seems like Moreno is getting the DRS here as well off of Pukki, so he can immediately defend and possibly even drive away from the pole behind.
Yeah, Istvan Pukki is a wounded animal out there. He's missing one of his end plates on his front wing. That's why he's lost so much time to the rest of the field. He might have been involved in the incident with DiCaprio. Here comes Moreno, sending it up the inside of Istvan there. And he just allows the Spaniard through. You can't battle with that front wing damage. No point in holding up the leaders. Istvan Pukki gets out of the way on that occasion. Parajic will be hoping for similar treatment from the Hungarian when he comes up to pass him. Out at the front of the race, it is Yamulo leading from Floris Vyers. These are the guys on the contra strategy on those mediums at this stage. Then the two Finns behind them, then Samuel Valentin, who has stuck with them. DiCaprio and Pukki have fallen well off the back of these battlers, though, as Parajic isn't having it all his own way in the battle with Pukki. And Buraman might be looking to get a bit interested in this one as well. Pukki goes defensive in towards turn 6. Parajic goes for the undercut. And oh my goodness, Buraman almost got up the inside of both of them there. Didn't quite have the angle for it, but he's got a better run out of the corner than Parajic. He has to worry about Istvan on his inside as well, but Pukki with that front wing damage is now just letting everyone through. Parajish won't be too happy with how that all went down, but he has held on to de facto P2 in this race.
Yeah, meanwhile, Josh Dowu is behind Pookie here and is sort of stuck behind the Alfa Romeo, the damaged Alfa Romeo that is. So he's really trying to get the move on, and it's just not happening here through the middle sector. Now he's going to get it done, I think, on DRS, as Pookie is struggling so much. This is not what we want to see. We don't want to see the back of Idowu here. We want to see the front, and he has the position now. And there's another car. There's Caraton through the middle of the both of them.
Unbelievable stuff here as Caraton looks to have made the move on both of these drivers. Idowu has something left to say about that. He's still alongside Caraton just about, but he cannot find the traction on the exit. And as a result, Caraton moves up 2 positions further up the order. Buromand was able to dispatch Tomasz Parajic as well. And that means that Moreno might not have it all his own way at the front. Parajic was struggling to stick with the Spaniard. Buromand now there, the Iranian, driving for the rest of the world. Can he be the one to reel the Spaniard back in to make sure there's still a fight for the win in this race? Moreno is in a very strong position. He has the freshest tyres. He has a 1.8 second margin to his main rivals in this race. And he is sitting pretty with 6 seconds of clear air up ahead of him.
Yeah, and we are going to expect the drivers that are currently in the top 6 to pit probably by the end of lap 9, maybe earlier. Lap 8 is possible, lap 7 is risky, but lap 8, lap 9, maybe lap 10 if they feel more, if they do feel comfortable on the medium tire. But even then, you want to use the softs. They're so much quicker. They struggle a little bit on temperature, but they are just so much quicker that you want to be using them for as much as possible.
Donoso with another 3-second time penalty. That's the first of this race. Buromand is closing in Moreno slightly, but it really is only infinitesimally small margins. Meanwhile, Otmir is going for a move around the outside of Parajic, who doesn't want to lose 2 positions in 2 corners, so nearly collecting Buromand with his front end there. But the Iranian gets away from that one without any issue. Parajic does manage, by braking so late, to hold on to the position ahead of Jarno Otmir, but Otmir will have another opportunity down towards turn 1. He's got more ERS percentage available to him, and he's using it now to make the move on the Polish driver. Parajic falling down into what is currently 10th position in this race. And speaking of ERS percentages, Buromand is in a very good spot right now. He's at 53%. Moreno is at 40%. And the 2 cars behind Buromand are at 22%. So the Iranian can feel pretty good about his current situation. But then again, not as good as Danny Moreno leading the way.
Yeah, and a 15% difference there in ERS is not going to make Barry Buromand gain a whole second on track, which is what he needs to get back into the DRS range right now. The gap between Moreno and Buromand right now, 1.9 seconds, so it's not enough there for Buromand to get close. He's going to have to find some other way, and considering when Moreno pitted, we look at the tires right now, Moreno's are 1 lap fresher, so that advantage is going to negate any possible ERS battery advantage that Buromand might have.
Yeah, Moreno is starting to drive away a bit more now from Badia Buromand. As Yemulo heads into the pits now, Karinen follows him in as well. These guys are going to be going onto the soft tyres for the end of this race. Istvan Pukki has done the same, but he's lost so much time as a result of his front wing damage and then the front wing change that he is unlikely to be scoring any points in this one. As Yildirim, similar story. He's 20 seconds off the back of the field on hard tyres. And same again for Antoine Desaluski as well. Let's see where Yemulo and now Karinen filter back out. They're going to be behind Zabo Konyi here, just about in the points. They will be the fastest cars on track, you'd have to imagine, with those fresh soft tyres for the next couple of laps at least. Chanakinchi manages to jump now Karinen at the pit exit there, but it's only going to be a matter of time before the Finn finds his way past the Turk.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to keep an eye out on Dario Yemulo. Remember, I said before, 1.4 seconds the gap between softs and mediums in fresh condition. Well, the softs are fresh, the mediums aren't. Sabakonya has been on those tires for over 5 laps now, so the gap is even higher than 1.4 seconds. I would estimate at this point probably just under 2 seconds a lap. And of course, it's going to come down a little bit more as those softs wear out while the mediums stay stable. But right now, Yamulo has a massive advantage, and he needs to get past. He needs to get past quickly to make the most of these soft tires. So expect some moves very, very quickly.
We will see whether they're going to be able to make it past the Hungarian as they head down the back straight. Monyi is also getting pretty close to the back of Idowu, who doesn't have DRS, but right now Yamulo is pulling alongside Zabukonyi. Into the braking zone we go. You can see up ahead, that's Kamonyi getting up the inside of Idowu, and the same story for Yamulo, who's able to dispatch Zabukonyi. He'll still be reeling from that incident he had with Donoso earlier on. At least he knows now that Donoso has a penalty, so he will claim that position back from him, as the three drivers who hadn't pitted outside of Alessio Di Capua all now come into the pit lane. Donoso's having a look around the outside of Idowu in towards turn 1. He gets the snapback and moves up the inside instead through turn 2 and takes the racing line for turn 3. Beautifully done there by Fabrizio Donoso. Josh Idowu struggling a little bit at this phase of the race. He's got nothing left in the tank in terms of his battery charge. He's about to lose out to Yamulo as well. It's going to be another switchback again. Idowu cannot defend against these switchbacks right now, and he falls down yet another position into 10th.
Yeah, meanwhile, Yamulo just working his way through the field patiently but quickly, and this is so important. You want to make it happen as quickly as possible, but you don't want to overshoot it. You don't want to be too aggressive, because that might lose you a part of your front wing or your whole front wing. In a worst case scenario, might even end your whole race. So Yamulo really picking his battles quickly but smartly, and that is so important here as he lines up Donoso for another move.
Yeah, let's see if he can make the move then on the Chilean-French driver. Donoso himself is lining up on the rear end of Camille Kamonyi, and he'll want to dispatch the pole. And he might find himself without any room to pull out in towards turn 1. They're going to be 3 wide, potentially. Yamulo doesn't back out of it. He has to cut the corner. He doesn't pick up a penalty, and he's got no traction on the inside on the exit of the corner. But he has saved the day for Kamonyi, because Donoso wasn't able to get a good run out either due to the contact between himself and Dario Yamulo. And as a result, Kamonyi holds on, but only for the time being. Donoso has another crack at it. Down towards turn 1, he takes the inside line. Might find himself vulnerable to Yamulo, and Yamulo's trying to take both of them. There's contact between himself and Donoso. Donoso didn't shut the door in time, and the Italian has the outside. This is going to be better traction for Yamulo on the exit of turn 3. Through turn 4 we go, then turn 5. That's the kink just up ahead. It's going to give Yamulo the inside line for the braking zone of turn 6. And what a moment there for Dario Yamulo as he makes the position stick on Donoso and Kamonyi. And he has cut his way up through the field like a hot knife through butter. Now Karinen trying to emulate him further back as he dispatches Idowu. But Yamulo is in a very good position to score some much-needed points for Italy, with Di Capua already down in 16th after a disastrous race for him.
Yeah, he pitted way too late, so that he, at this point, only has 5 laps left on those soft tires, and that's just not enough time for him to regain anything. He was on those medium tires for way too long. But Yamulo, on the alternate strategy, he might be the one to make this one work. Look at the time he's still gaining on the cars in front. Karaton, Paradzic, Opmer, Boromand. I think Moreno might be just a bit too far away, but P2 for Dario Yamulo is certainly possible at this point.
It's possible. I don't know how likely it is, but it is definitely possible, as now Karinen is battling with Kamonyi behind. He heard you saying that Yamulo was getting the best out of the soft tire strategy, or the contra strategy, I should say. Now Karinen wants to make sure that he's getting as much as he can, getting his money's worth as well. And Floris Vaez, same story, just behind Attakaupanen, a little bit further down the road, is also trying to dispatch the medium tire runners. And these guys, it's all about how well they can battle wheel to wheel right now. They all have the pace to overtake these guys, but it's the wheel to wheel battling where they can really make the difference. Floris Vaez does manage to make the move on Kamonyi, who had a bit of a four-wheel drift on the exit of turn 3 there. No chance of him fighting back against the Dutchman. Vaez now into the top 10. Team Netherlands need that. Opmer currently running around in 3rd. He's very, very close behind Bari Boromand right now. Both have plenty left in the tank in terms of their battery charge. And that is one big proviso here, one big issue for Dario Yamulo, an asterisk that you have to apply. Because to get P2, he'll have to pass 3 or 4 drivers, all of whom have about 50% battery charge. He himself, he's sitting on between 13 and 6, depending on whether he's been in a braking zone recently or not. So he needs to charge out that battery a lot before he can really think about starting to make too many more moves.
Yeah, he's not doing so. We are on board here. We see the disable button. That means he's currently on the overtake.
Sorry to cut you off there. Opmir's looking for the move on Bari Buraman. 4P2 as Buraman defends up the inside. And Opmir's pushed off track just a little bit there by the Iranian. It's getting a bit spicy between these two once again. They were at loggerheads a week ago in the Netherlands. And hopefully this doesn't end in tears as we run down towards turn 1. Buraman already going defensive, signaling that he does not want to allow Jarno Opmir through. And Opmir tries to dive it around the outside. There's the ghosted car. If there's a Luski up ahead, that's going to be a distraction, but nothing more if they drive clean through it. Buraman trying to get the switch back through turn 3, and that is beautifully done from Bari Buraman. He reads Jarno Opmir like a book, but on the exit, Opmir still has the traction to continue the battle with the Iranian. Buraman, he'll have to go around the outside. He brakes later. Opmir gets off the brakes, and they make contact. It's clumsy from Opmir, and it's Buraman pushed well out wide, and you gotta feel that that was personal from Jarno Opmir as he moves himself up in a second. Porajic is able to pounce on Buraman and move into third as well. Karaton is the next one up for the Iranian to try and defend from, and this is good news as well for Dario Yamulo, but Jarno Opmir, that was a bit much.
Yeah, that was certainly a very strong move at the very least, and I think it will land on the steward's table. Whether it warrants a penalty or not, we are not going to decide that. We're not going to get into that. The stewards will probably have a look at that one after the event, and whatever decision they take, we will let you know next time around for event 3. But event 2 isn't over yet. Here goes Porajic on Opmir around the outside. Opmir tried to defend, but there wasn't really much he could do. The overspeed the Polish driver had was just way too much for him, and Porajic up to second place with only 1 lap to go.
Yeah, and it's easy straight out of the front with Moreno with all these guys battling. 3 seconds he's been able to build up now. And Jarno Opmir has nothing left. His ERS is so low. Same for Buraman in their battle with one another. They had to deploy both for the back straight and then for the main straight. Porajic didn't have to do that. And as a result, he's been able to absolutely mug Jarno Opmir down the back straight this time around as Alessio Di Capua retires in the pit lane for Team Italy. But yeah, that's why Porajic was able to make the move so cleanly on Jarno Opmir. It's all about the battery charge right now. And Karaton still has a lot left in the tank. He's got too much. It's the last lap of the race. And he's got 60-odd% to burn through right now. Buraman and Opmir, they're going to struggle if Karaton really puts his foot on it right now. Porajic should have just enough to hold in the position he is currently in. Yamulo hasn't been able to build up too much. He's at 20%. And as a result, he's unlikely to make too much more progress. Moreno still leading the way calmly at the front of the field. Porajic in second, Jarno Opmir in third, Buraman fourth, Karaton fifth. Any one of these could be making moves on any other one as we head down the back straight one last time here. Porajic leading the way of these drivers. Opmir, how much closer is he going to get? He's in overtake mode, but he has nothing left to offer in that regard. Same story for Buraman, and Karaton is going to be the one. He's going to be the one to try and make a move. Buraman goes defensive on the inside, but Karaton around the outside. He breaks later. They make a bit of contact, and Buraman shuts the door. It's all about traction on the exit, and there's a counter-steer moment for Karaton. He hasn't made it, but his teammate has, as Moreno takes the win of the race in dominant fashion. And Porajic comes across the line in second. Jarno Opmir a disgruntled third. Buraman an even more disgruntled fourth. And Karaton couldn't quite make the move at the end. He finishes fifth. Yamulo, great drive on the contra-strategy in sixth with Naukarin and Kaupanen and Vyers all behind him on those soft tyres as well. Kamoni just about held on in the top 10. Ido will be disappointed with an 11th place finish here. Samuel Valentin, he'll be delighted with 12th. Fabrizio Donoso in 13th as a result of penalties. Zabo Konyi, the highest of the Hungarians, in 14th only, and Akinci in 15th for Team Turkey.
I gotta say, if I had to pick a driver of this race, not a driver of the day, we've had many races this day, but if I had to pick a driver of this race, I would probably go for Dario Yamulo. I think on the alternate strategy, he was so smart in how he picked his battles, where he tried to overtake, that it was just delightful to see. And moving up 5 places from 11th on the grid, he really made that alternate strategy work. The game chooses Samuel Valentin from last to 12th, also getting into the points, getting 4 good points here. But to me, I gotta say, Dario Yamulo well performed on the alternate strategy here, getting himself a 6th place, but it is Danny Moreno who gets 25 points for Team Spain and the win in this race. And not just 25 points, Alvaro Caraton being in P5 will also snatch some more points, 14 extra for him. So 39 overall for Team Spain here. And I'm just going to quickly try and do some math. Careful, everyone. It might not work out well. Actually, I can't even see the old standings anymore. That's been so long since it was posted in the chat. But I'm pretty sure with Hungary scoring a total of 2 points, it seems. Yep. With Sabukonyi, I think Hungary are no longer the leaders.
I don't think they can be. I think the rest of the world will have overtaken them. The Dutch might have overtaken them. And the Spanish might have overtaken them as well. It's going to be very, very close at the top of the order. And I got to say, my driver of that race, I mean, Dario Yamulo did a great job on the comp strategy, but for me, Danny Moreno was the standout performer in that race. It's not often you see a guy in a full esports field gapping at the lead of the race by 3.7 seconds when it comes to the line. It was no reverse grid shenanigans. He was helped out a tiny bit by Istvan Pukki holding up Parajish for a little bit. But his overcut that he pulled was magnificent, and from there, he never looked back. He always had the pace on the rest of the field. His fastest lap was so much faster than everyone else on the same strategy. For me, Danny Moreno absolutely bossed it that race. So congratulations to him and to Team Spain.
Yeah, certainly a fantastic race from him as well. I mean, you mentioned it. The last time we saw someone drive away at the rate of 3.5 seconds or more at the end of the race was in Budapest. Of course, we had Rain there, and we had a second place, Ulasas Yildirim, who, made sure that everyone else wasn't able to get past. But here, everyone was driving in dry conditions. We had Tomasz Parajic, we had Jano Opme, we had Barry Berman, we had the best of the best trying to chase after Danny Moreno, and they just were not able. And then ultimately, in the end, obviously, they got tangled up a little bit in their own shenanigans, in their own battles. And as such, they weren't able to keep up with the Spaniard who went on to win the race. And there we have the standings after the second event. And it is Team Spain that will go into event 3 as the leaders with 134 points. It will be Team Netherlands in second at 124. Remember, after round 1, how much down the order they were. They were 18 points behind the leaders. They were in 4th place, and now they're in second, 10 points in absolute close distance here to the Spaniards, but also in very, very close distance to the rest of the world, because they're in third, only 1 point behind Netherlands at 123. Hungary, of course, have lost out a little bit here. They're down in 4th at 115, but certainly within striking distance as well. Italy 96, Poland recovering quite well. They are in the battle for sure at 91, tied with Finland at 91, and then we have our bottom 3, unfortunately, Team Europe at 47, Turkey at 40, and France once again struck by bad luck. Dezaluski having a game crash. France down in last at 38. It's really not been lucky for them whatsoever.
Indeed, it has not. And we are going to take a quick ad break here, I believe, before bringing you some interviews in just a couple of minutes' time. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a few moments.
It's time now. Your blood is burning. Your stamina is rising. Greet all the challenges in your way.
What will you like today? Another Cloud 2 classic?
I'll stick with the usual. Maybe take a little bit off the sides.
Oh, that's fresh.
The HyperX Cloud 2 Wireless. Legendary comfort goes wireless.
Watch it!
Welcome back once again, everybody, and we are here in the commentary box with a few interviews to bring you. We're going to start now with Danny Moreno, the winner of that last race of the day in China, in what was ultimately pretty dominant style. First of all, hello, Danny. Hi, so let's talk about that race. I mean, there was a lot of races you did today. Let's quickly talk about China first, because that was very impressive. How was that race from your perspective?
Well, I think it was, from my side, pretty good, as I managed to overtake Barry at the beginning and went up to P2, which I think it's the best position next to P1. And yeah, basically the rest of the race was, trying to maintain the best possible pace. I knew Jarno got held in the pits pretty badly, so that's why on my in-lap I pushed massively, using quite a bit of my ERS, which paid off because I was in P1 and I still was in P1 after the pits in front of Tomek. And the next thing I tried was just drain my ERS so that I could build a 1 second gap to the guys behind. And the rest was pretty simple.
Absolutely. Pretty simple. Just holding off some of the fastest drivers in the world at 3.7 seconds. Simple stuff, of course. But then thinking of the rest of the day as well, Danny, how were the first couple of races for you as well?
Well, they were pretty bad. 2-0s obviously is not what I'm looking for, or the team is looking for. At Baku, we went for a strategy where we both finished quite low on the grid. Like, we were planning to finish P14, P15, P13, so that in Hungary we had a good chance to finish P1 and P2. But entering the pits in Baku, obviously with the regulations you gotta stay within the white lines, and the guy behind me didn't want to do that. So obviously I took it more cautiously, he didn't, and he ran into me, putting me into the wall, breaking my front wing. The game also decided to give me a 5 seconds, because the game decided it was my fault. And exiting the pit lane, I got a drive-through. So yeah, that was not a good race. And obviously that meant I started P19 for Hungary. And in Hungary, with the rain, I managed to go up quite a bit of places after some interesting driving from a lot of people in front. I don't remember who, but it was pretty shocking. And I got a penalty, which was really stupid, which made me finish P17. So yeah, thank God I did a good race in China.
Yeah, and congratulations on that win as well. Thank you for the interview. And now jump on over to your teammate, Alvaro Carreton, the other member of Team Spain, another winner here today in the second race of the day in Hungary. First of all, Alvaro, how was that race for you?
Hello, everyone. Yeah, to be honest, we started third, and the start was crucial because I managed to go P1 after turn 3. And then the rest was pretty simple, to be honest. I managed to pull a gap, and yeah, it was good.
Yeah, indeed. A very, very good race for sure. Huge gap at the end of that one. And then if we think about the race in China quickly as well, you were there in P5 for a while. I noticed on that final lap, you still had plenty of ERS available to you. The drivers ahead didn't have so much. Do you feel you held on to it a little bit too much in the end? Could you maybe have got at least one more position by the checker flag, or was that basically all you could hope for?
To be honest, I'm really disappointed with my qualifying, because I felt like I had the pace to be 1-2 with Danny easily, and I just bottled the last lap, so I started P8 and then I had to recover. Thankfully, I managed to get P5, and yeah, we were side by side with Barry, but I knew he was in the heat from Jarno before, so I decided not to take risks because he could have pushed me off the track, and I didn't want to, so I took it safe to P5.
Yeah, sometimes definitely better to take mental states into account. Very smart driving there, Alvaro. And then quickly thinking about Team Spain, we did just see the standings. I can't remember, was Team Spain actually at the very top? I think, yeah, Team Spain with a 10-point lead at the very top of the standings right now, 10 points down to the Dutch team in second. Do you reckon you guys are going to be able to take the whole thing?
We are trying hard, but we need to sort out some stupid mistakes we are doing, and hopefully we'll get them.
All right. Well, thank you very much for talking to us, Alvaro, and congratulations on your win and your teammates' win today.
Thank you.
Next up, we have, I believe the next one to join the channel was Floris Vyers for Team Netherlands. Floris, are you there?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Indeed. So, once again, third and final race of the day was the race for you.
Yes.
In China, qualifying maybe didn't go your way?
No, I bought up my last quali lap, and that would have been in the top 10. So yeah, I bottled it, but I think it's best that I bottled it because I didn't. To be honest, finally a good race for myself. This race, a good comeback.
Yeah, absolutely. That contra strategy definitely working out well, starting on the mediums, going on to the softs. You and a fair few other drivers made that work pretty well. How easy was it fighting your way up through the field once you'd made that pit stop onto the softs?
Quite easy, but I would have loved to have more ERS than I had. I had like 30% ERS when I came out of the pit, so was not a lot, so I had to deal with it. But the tires were just so massively quicker than the mediums. But yeah, also you get a bit held up. But I tried to overtake where I could, and that worked out pretty well, to be honest.
All right. Well, congratulations on a positive result in China, at least, and on Team Netherlands managing to be second in the standings. And thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, I believe, if my memory serves, that should be Tino Naukarinen, who joined next. Tino?
Yo.
Hello. Hi. So, Team Finland, I'm trying to remember all of the results for Team Finland in this one. It seemed like it was just sort of a lot of middle-of-the-pack results. I remember, I think, 7th and 8th in China. That was a pretty good result for you guys. How are you feeling about the way the day went?
Shit. no quality pace, and what can you do from mid-pack? I mean, me and Atte both got points in a race. What can you do? I mean, when you think about it, we did probably 4 hours of practice the whole week. We did 2 laps of practice for Hungary, so I'm kind of glad it rained.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't have any pace anyway, so getting P10 in Baku and P7 in China is all right. We are still only 40 points off the lead. Just gotta practice more and win the races easy. That's it.
You talk about being off the lead there. Is that something that you're thinking about? Are you thinking for Team Finland? Are you thinking of taking the ultimate victory in this tournament? Is that something you still feel is attainable for you?
Of course, you just gotta, if how it should, if you just get a good result with your teammate, that's literally it. We are 40 points off, and if you get 1-3 with your teammate, that's already 40 points. It's just gotta be kind of lucky in a way as well, and yeah, that's it basically.
Yeah, and plenty more opportunities to score those sorts of point-scoring results as well. Thank you very much for talking to us, Tina. And, commiserations on what you're evidently not happy with today, but it was still a solid result in China from my perspective.
Thanks.
Okay, and next up we have Tomek Poradzic. Hello, Tomek.
Oh, I'm here. Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted.
No worries. First of all, how's my pronunciation of Poradzic?
Way better than anyone's ever done before. So yeah, I was just rewatching the stream right now. I was looking for one moment, and I was actually really impressed with how well you said that, you pronounced that. So yeah, no worries on that. I think out of all the foreign commentators, I think you did the best job out of anyone. So nice one.
That's very, very nice to hear. The Polish names do tend to be some of the most difficult, so I'm very glad if I'm able to get them right. But now let's talk about the action. We did see before the race, and we mentioned it quite a lot, there was people hyping you up. Certain Tino Alcarino, I believe, was hyping you up on Twitter about Azerbaijan in particular. Were you happy with the way that race ultimately went?
Well, yeah, I was being hyped up quite a bit, and I must admit the pace in practice was kind of extraordinary from me, at least for my standards. I think I've never been this, just in terms of raw pace. I think I've been really, really fast. So, yeah, I was having high hopes going to that race, and honestly, qualifying has went solid. I think the lap. It left a lot of time compared to what you do in practice. But Baku is one of those tracks where you can't really you push the limit in the actual session. You need big balls, as we like to say it, to do that. So yeah, I was quite happy with the lap. Starting P2 is obviously a good place to start in the race. It gives you a lot of opportunities. And the first stint wasn't the greatest, I must say. I was kind of looking to get ahead of Josh, but I wasn't even close to doing that. And the decision to pit was, yeah, kind of wrong. I think at the end of the day, I got held quite a lot. And even though I gained the position on Josh, Jarno, who stayed at one more lap, gained like 2 seconds relative to me. He rejoined like 1.4 ahead of me. And at that point, I knew that the race was pretty much over because no matter how fast I go, Jarno is a world champion. So like matching his pace is already hard enough. And getting back into the DRS and then making the move, I pretty much knew that was impossible, but I think I still did a good job putting some kind of pressure on him in the lasting stages of the race. So yeah, P2. If someone told me that I'm gonna finish P2 before the race, I would be very happy. But knowing that the win was pretty much lost in the pit stops it gives that little of a bitter feeling. But yeah, very happy to take away, I think, 21 points from Baku.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another great points haul in China as well. Another good performance from yourself. A lot of battling went on there. There was, of course, the incident between Otmir Boromand as well. Were you surprised as well with the pace that Moreno was able to offer after he came out of the pits?
Well, yeah, I think I always knew that Danny is going to be really fast, and him being in a Williams means he is absolutely safe from being held in the pits. I think that's the one advantage that they have, that they can't get held in the pits being in a Williams. So when I went for the undercut, my plan was to jump everyone but Danny, because I knew jumping Danny was pretty much going to be impossible. So when he rejoined in front of me, I thought I could stick with him. However, he did manage to pass that one driver without the front wing. I think it was Pookie. He passed him in a very good spot, and I got held a little bit in sector 1. So yeah, got a bit unfortunate there, and that meant that Danny could pull away. And from that point onwards, it was a battle between myself, Barry, and Jarno. And yeah, I think at the end of the day, the incident between the two was what I was waiting for, and given the recent events between the two, I kind of saw it coming. So yeah, I just took advantage of it. I was saving my ERS behind them, not doing anything stupid. And in the last 2 laps, I jumped up to P2, which in China, I really didn't expect that good of a result.
Well, congratulations on it, and on Azerbaijan as well, and on scoring some very, very good points for Team Poland. And thank you very much for joining us for this interview.
Thank you.
And finally, we have Bence Zabo Konyi, also known as Photon, sitting very patiently, I must say, in the commentary box with us. Sorry for the long wait there, Bence, but how are you doing?
Doing fine, thanks. Can you hear me well, by the way?
Yes, indeed. Your mic is working A-OK. So, the races, I mean, some of your qualifyings, you're qualifying in Azerbaijan, China, inside the top 10 both times, from what I recall, if that's correct. And the races didn't necessarily all go your way. What was your perspective on the day?
Yeah, Danny's absence didn't... it wasn't quite optimal. I was notified this morning about what happened, so... Yeah, I had to jump in for Hungary and China.
Right.
And, obviously, had 0 time to practice for it, so... It wasn't quite great, but... Yeah, qualifying pace was quite good on both tracks. Especially Baku. I was actually surprised. Then, yeah, race pace just wasn't there. Also, I was held up in the pits. I lost like 5 or 7 seconds, I don't know. and then the VRC as well meant that soft runners were able to catch me, and I was on old mediums, so it wasn't quite great. But I wasn't really disappointed because I knew the reverse grid is happening in Hungary, which meant that I was starting P2. And yeah, it was raining, so it was almost impossible to overtake. And yeah, I just kept P4. I knew that Feb has penalty in front of me. Yeah, jumped up to podium. So that was a great race.
Indeed, yeah, definitely a big race for Team Hungary. And out of the Chinese Grand Prix, as a result of that, you have dropped down to P4 in the standings, but it's still very close at the top. Do you still think that Team Hungary is capable of taking the ultimate win?
Of course, still, I think 4 events to go, or something. Yeah, so I think if Danny comes back, I think he is the strongest driver of our team, so
right.
If he comes back, I think we can take back the lead and maintain it until the end of the season.
All right. Well, thank you very, very much for the interview, Bence. And hopefully you'll get some more races like the Hungarian one in the future. And so, finally, one more interview to bring you guys. It is, of course, Jano Opmeer, who won our first race of the day in Azerbaijan. Hello, Jano.
Yo.
Hi. So, let's talk about Azerbaijan first and foremost. That race, it seemed like it wasn't necessarily going to go your way off the start, but then you managed to bring it through. And how was the race from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, qualifying was not ideal. I messed up my wall qualifying lap in one corner, basically, after I was 2 turns up. But, you know, it happened. And then still, luckily, P3. Ending up P3 and then starting P3, which is okay around Baku. Then I got very lucky with Josh getting held in the pits. Yeah, that was very handy for me. I think Tomek got held shortly as well, because I went, I think, 1 or 2 laps longer and still managed to basically come out ahead on fresher tires. So yeah, I think it was quite clear. I was a little bit lucky there, but at the same time, I think me and Tomek were quite clear on the race pace compared to the others. So.
And then if we go then to the second race of the day in Hungary, of course, suffering front wing damage on the opening lap, we heard you had contact with one of the Finnish drivers. And from there on, it was a bit of a struggle for you to keep the guys behind. How easy was it for you to keep the likes of Danny Moreno at bay?
Yeah, that was quite tough, of course. In the first lap, I had a mega start, mega first 3 corners. I think I gained 4 or 5 places in the opening sector, but then I just outbroke myself and hit the back of Atte. Luckily, no damage or time loss for him, so that was really good for him at least. For me, it was a little bit worse, of course. I had quite heavy damage, and then I just had to fight for a little bit of points, which I managed to do. Luckily, coming home in P12. So
those points could well be all important in the remainder of the season. But you definitely scored a fair few more points in China as well. That race, of course, there was the incident at the end with yourself and Bari Buraman, but I just want to ask you about the race in general. It was a very action-packed race, actually, and at the very end, I noticed that you had used a lot of with Bari, and I'm wondering, was that how difficult was it then to try and fend off Porajish after that, and were you happy with how the race went in the end?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I got held just like George and Baku really long. I got held for like 2-3 seconds. So yeah, that cost me quite a bit because I tried to undercut on Danny Moreno, of course, and that's because I didn't manage to do that. So yeah, that was a bit frustrating, but then pace was pretty good. Managed to overtake Tomek and then Barry. Unfortunately, I didn't have any DRS left in the end, and then well, I was basically a little bit of a sitting duck to Tomek.
Indeed, but a stronger week then for the Netherlands overall, and of course some good points from Floris Vijs in that last race, and especially from Matthias van Erven in the first race of the day in Azerbaijan. It seemed like Matthias had a generally pretty good performance. Obviously, he wasn't so great in Hungary, but that was a bit of an exception. Are we expecting to see more of Matthias throughout the rest of the season?
Yeah, he did really good. I mean, I was switching a lot between PS4 and PC, and now I think he's finally full-time going to go to PC League Racing. So he'll get faster along the way, I think so. He had a very good race in Baku, of course. Also took a little bit of an advantage from the people getting held in pits. But still, I think he did a phenomenal race at really good pace. and managed to bring home very good points.
Indeed. So Netherlands now sitting second in the championship, and you yourself must be up there with the guys that have scored the most points in the tournament as well. Thank you very much for speaking to us, and congratulations on a good day for Team Netherlands.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So those are our interviews for the day then. And any closing thoughts from yourself, Badge?
Good question. I think we've seen once again great racing. Hungary maybe wasn't that up to standard because it was raining and it was Hungary, and both combined were a little bit tricky, but I think China made for a fantastic race, plenty of overtakes, and Azerbaijan obviously, again, well done. Baku always holds true. And I'm very much looking forward to the next event, which is going to be next Sunday, same time as tonight, 7 p.m. Central European time. We're only going to have 2 races next time. It's going to be a short qualifying and a 25% race around Austria, followed by a reverse grid 50% race around Bahrain. So only 2 tracks for the drivers to prepare for, but I think the 50% reverse grid Bahrain race should open up an opportunity for some of the drivers to still make up some points and make for a fantastic race. I think Bahrain, one of the tracks that a lot of drivers like, a lot of viewers like. And you said to me earlier, and I think it holds very true, if you place this track in a typical European racing country, a lot of people would see it as the best track on the calendar.
Yeah, absolutely. I stand by that. That's a hill I'm willing to die on. The sand dunes of Bahrain are the hills I'm willing to die on in this regard. I think it's a fantastic circuit. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing a reverse grid race there as well. And it's 50%. It's a circuit where you can overtake, 50% race. The reverse grid, the guys at the back of the reverse grid, the fastest ones in the first race in Austria, they'll have a big opportunity, lots of time and lots of opportunities to make their way up through the field. And we are really going to see the cream rising in that one. So that will be absolutely fascinating to watch.
Yeah, certainly. And I think with that, we will leave you to the rest of your evenings, and we will see you again next Sunday back on the ORL YouTube channel. We're going to be alternating between this Future Esports channel right here and the ORL channel. Make sure you subscribe here, though, because rounds 4 and round 6 are going to be broadcast here on the Future Esports channel. And with that, from myself, Badgerman, and from Aladar, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.